And we're live. There we go. The wee spinny thing finally stopped spinning. Have a mixed speech says, "Hey Doc, hey guys, that's it. I seem to be in my little going live loop for quite some time there." And there's Bojack Hartley saying, hello, Bojack. How you doing? Thank you very much for your comments, by the way. I have to check the last one, but the first one was spot on. The second one was one I think I put in me replies to. That one was my mistake. One was a genuine thing that we had to make note of. And I suppose that's good that we do have the comments section on each episode, where if we do have any little thing like that, that it can be added to, or any wee mistakes, etc., that we're finding. But I updated my notebooks accordingly, Bojack. So thank you very much indeed. And I'm going to check that last one. I know you're bouncing back a few episodes, but it's interesting that you're still finding the occasional thing that we've missed. A mistake wise. Sean Wyland saying good evening, Doug. Hi, Sean. Yeah, 10 o'clock's there. I'll just do the formal hello, everyone. Thanks very much for joining me tonight. My name is Doc Sloan. Welcome to my science fiction station, also known as The Doghouse, here on YouTube. We're on chapter 29 tonight of our Children of Dune book club, which we're plodding away through chapter by chapter, annotating the work and basically tearing it apart in a fun way, in an attempt to understand Frank Herbert's books, to grok them in fullness, as one might say. And we were going to go with this chapter 29 in tandem with the chapter last week, because they're two nice little short chapters. However, I kind of hit I was going to say maybe a research wall. I'm a bit tenacious like that on a term that's pretty relevant to the meaning of this chapter, I thought, which is to do with basically Ghanima channeling the personality of a priestess of Jowf, and we have the mention of Sennacherib in Assyria, etc. So the great news is, mucking around with all this stuff, taking the extra time, the extra week to look into this. And also looking at some discussion notice boards and things like that online, that this was a bit of a mystery. We figured out who it is, and there's Cynthia saying, "Hi Doc, hi all." And just in running with that, Cynthia had promised that she would check this out with her husband, and sent me an email, and just kind of about almost 10 minutes after I had my little wahey moment. This was great, actually, that the information that came in from Cynthia and her husband confirmed for me that I had the right person. Although I was pretty much 100%, well, we'll go with 99% certain that I had the right individual, because the person in question, it lines up with what's happening to Ghanima in the story, and it's that kind of thing. Though, if you read it in this chapter, you might not think so. It's a little bit deceptive. Pardon me. So thank you very much for that, Cynthia. It's enormous fun piling into a little bit of research like this, especially as kind of things like, the Assyrians and stuff like that. That's not my usual sandbox, if you see what I mean, in the ancient world, though I'm obviously well aware of cultures and peoples like this. So I've had a wee bit of fun. I've actually got a few pages of notes for you. And hopefully it'll kind of clear up this mystery for a few people, because it seems that a bunch of people have been looking into this and not getting far with it. And also, I think it'll sort of give a real sense to what Frank's actually suggesting here, and what it is that Ghanima in particular is, I suppose, experiencing in this form of other memory, and how it relates to her personal situation. In the very near future. I think that's the best way to put it, There's Julian Thompson saying, good evening, everybody. Hi, Julian. I sent you an email back there for that chat. Let me know. There's Carlos Coselius saying, hey, Doc, guys. How you doing, Carlos? Very good to see you all. Thank you very much for joining me, as always. I had such fun with this chapter, folks. I really did. I said I started off kind of looking through some stuff relating to Semir. I ended up scribbling all over this and stuff, but just kind of to give me a benchmark for the ancient world. Excuse me. So yeah, what we'll do is we'll keep you in suspense a little bit longer. I'll put it this way: I suppose in this room, myself, I know who it is, and I think Cynthia knows who it is. I don't know if any of the rest of you, and I don't want to be mean, but I just want to drop all of this at the right time in the chapter, and it shouldn't take us too long to get there. We've got a few terms within this chapter that's something off researching. Most of them weren't too difficult to deal with. Pardon me. Yeah, I think there's even a few lessons to be learned from this stuff actually today. And I think we might have one or two small mistakes within this chapter. Nothing like the absolute hodgepodge we had last week. And as I said, we were talking about all these mistakes the other week. The real problem with them in a few different texts is that, and it genuinely looks like these are publishing mistakes. They're not much to do with Frank by the looks of it. But they were really distorting the meaning in the previous chapter. So it's nice to hit this chapter running. I've called this a couple of things actually, but deadly Ghanima Atreides is kind of what I've written right at the top of the page. And we have this is a trap within the trap, again within a trap, if you will. Our repeating motifs of plans within plans within plans, traps within traps within traps. All of this kind of thing, and who's doing what to who, I think is quite interesting. It's a very short little chapter. I think it's great fun. And again, I suppose what we're dealing with here is a badly injured 9-year-old girl. It's just to put that, to make that clear at the start of this chapter, I think. And we're going to look at a couple of ideas within this chapter, I suppose. But one of them is, interestingly enough, we're getting to see a sort of development of the Fremen in some ways. And in one ways, I suppose, comparing possibly what some of the Fremen have become to what Ghanima sees as that she is as a pure Fremen, if you like. I think that's kind of interesting within this chapter as well. And of course, I suppose this becomes the culmination of the Laza Tiger attack. We get to meet the assassins who are in control of the Tigers as such. And yeah, basically we get to see Ghanima thinking, Ghanima continuing to adjust the story of poor Leto II's death within her mind, and actually sort of within this chapter sort of attach it to his fake death to real world events, real world individuals in this chapter, such as Palin Basha. So yeah, I thought this was great fun. I don't know, it's just my personality, folks, but I love researching and going and finding stuff. And the trickier the better sometimes. It did occur to me, of course, that the simple thing would be to ask an Assyriologist what we wanted to know. I'd probably just tell you like that. But there we go. So here's our chapter 29. First of all, to start with, our paragraph, which is coming from the Handbook of the Hajj. And here we go. This is: in this age, when the means of human transport include devices which can span the deeps of space in trans-time, and other devices which can carry men swiftly over virtually impossible planetary surfaces, it seems odd to think of attempting long journeys afoot. Yet this remains a primary means of travel on Arrakis, a fact attributed partly to preference and partly to the brutal treatment which this planet reserves for anything mechanical. In the strictures of Arrakis, human flesh remains the most durable and reliable resource for the Hajj. Perhaps it was the implicit awareness of this fact which makes Arrakis the ultimate mirror for the soul. And that's an interesting little epigraph from the Handbook of the Hajj. It's odd to think in this far, far future that the best way to get about on this planet is on foot. As low tech as you can possibly get, if you like, and it's the most durable. Human flesh is the most durable and reliable resource for the Hajj. Mechanical failure is a big problem on this planet, I suppose. And it's this epigraph is speaking to the nature, the character of the planet, possibly in a much more religious sense, but the ultimate, mirror for the soul. So this place, walking in this place, getting about, taking part in the Hajj, would be, a great way to reflect, if you like, upon your own personality, your soul, your conscience, whatever you like. And I suppose I'm trying to figure out, again, we have Ghanima on foot here, if you like. I'm wondering if this epigraph is maybe something towards a wee bit further. But in terms of how Ghanima goes about her business, I suppose that she has what we could arguably call a mechanical option within this chapter. And she doesn't take it, I think. So I'm not too sure. I'm trying to get a sort of sense of this epigraph. And sometimes they catch up with you, if you see what I mean. So here we go. We start off, this is Ghanima. Slowly, cautiously, Ghanima made her way back to Tabr, holding herself to the deepest shadows of the dunes, crouching in stillness as the search party passed to the south of her. Terrible awareness gripped her. The worm which had taken the Tigers and Leto's body, the dangers ahead. So I just better get my copy of the book open. There we go. Let's get that out the room. Just while we're at it. Sorry. Should have had that done. There we go. He was gone. Her twin was gone. She put aside all tears and nurtured her rage. In this, she was pure Fremen, and she knew this, reveling in it. This is a great start to this chapter, isn't it? It's put aside your tears. And again, the terrible awareness gripped her, the worm which had taken the Tigers. This is this fictional story that's becoming a truth and a reality. It's almost as if, it's kind of in the way that Ghanima is imprinting this story upon herself, and using aspects of things that are happening around her, if you like, to reinforce the truth of it. By the way, I just wanted to say we were talking about the writing in the previous chapter. I really like the writing in this chapter. Frank's quite alliterative here. He's got some good wee techniques, and it flows well. It's a fast little chapter with a good sort of drop on us in terms of info and a nice bit of action at the end, But yeah, so this is rage that's kicked in, just pure Fremen. So here we go. This is quite interesting. She understood what was said about Fremen. They were not supposed to have a conscience, having lost it in a burning for revenge against those who had driven them from planet to planet. Only the rawest primitive had no conscience. Fremen possessed a highly evolved conscience, which centered on their own welfare as a people. It was only to outsiders that they seemed brutish, just as outsiders appeared brutish to Fremen. Every Fremen knew very well that he could do a brutal thing and feel no guilt. Fremen did not feel guilt for the same things that aroused such feelings in others. Their rituals provided a freedom from guilt which might otherwise have destroyed them. They knew in their deepest awareness that any transgression could be ascribed, at least in part, to well-recognized extenuating circumstances. The failure of authority, or a natural bad tendency shared by all humans, or to bad luck, which any sentient creature should be able to identify as a collision between mortal flesh and the other chaos of the universe. I like that. It's an interesting turn of phrase, isn't it? So it's a kind of vice versa thing, if you like, and we're being told what is said about the Fremen by others, and we have to question, I suppose, is it true? that they don't have a conscience. We're being told here, no, that's not the case. It's a highly evolved conscience, which centers on their own welfare as a people. So it's Fremen first, and pretty much that's it. Um, so essentially, excuse me, my nose is being tickly. What you're talking about is an isolationist kind of point of view. But it's an interesting thing because the Fremen are isolated for I suppose different reasons than you might. It's not sort of self-isolation, is it? They've ended up here after being pursued, as we're told, driven from planet to planet, and they've ended up on this planet, which is a nightmare world at the end of the day. If, going back and if we think about it, it's absolutely a hell of a place to live on. And they've managed to develop all sorts of systems and rituals and clothing and equipment to allow them to survive here. But primarily they've had the time to do that. And the main reason is that they couldn't leave, if you like, because of the addiction to melange. Anyone who leaves Arrakis must take some of it with them, basically. Isn't that the case? You'll always need to have melange on you. So there's a burning for revenge. This is the idea. But we're told it's not the case. Not certainly, we're told that every Fremen knows that they can do brutal things and feel no guilt. They don't feel guilt for the same things. The rituals provided a freedom from guilt. Rituals and tradition, which might otherwise have destroyed them. They knew in their deepest awareness that any transgression could be ascribed, at least in part, to well-recognized extenuating circumstances, the failure of authority, a natural bad tendency, bad luck. All of these are reasons, as it's put, a collision between mortal flesh and the other chaos of the universe. It's to do with killing, I think, is what we're being told there, essentially. Pardon me. Now, in this context, Ghanima felt herself to be pure Fremen, a carefully prepared extension of tribal brutality. She needed only a target, and that obviously was House Carino. She longed to see Farad'n's blood spilled on the ground at her feet. Just that little bit there, especially with the tigers and everything, just for a second or two, Ghanima reminded me on Gully Foot. She is a pure Fremen, an extension of tribal brutality, and she only needs a target. Have you ever heard a 9-year-old described as such? Never mind a 9-year-old girl. I think there is some sort of film about a 9-year-old assassin or a 10-year-old assassin, isn't there? Something like that. But I think it's a great description, isn't it? Some good writing here. And to me, it builds up. We were talking the other week about how deadly Jessica it was. In my opinion, what a deadly character, for different reasons. And here we have her granddaughter. And we're going to see how deadly she is. But we're getting the build up here, the mental build up, if you like, and kind of a little bit of insight into it from our omniscient narrator. There's all sorts of reasons why we'll happily kill people, out of necessity, this kind of thing, and they've got rituals to deal with it, but they don't take the guilt on. No, but just pure Fremen. Pardon me. It's the second time she was pure Fremen. He was right at the beginning. He was gone. Her twin was gone. She put aside all tears and nurtured her rage. In this, she was pure Fremen. In this context, Ghanima felt herself to be pure Fremen. I just love the language there. A carefully prepared extension of tribal brutality. And how and the next bit is just a bit. I've written actually next. This is the bit probably I know I've already mentioned it, but I've just written next. This she longed to see Farad's blood spilled on the ground at her feet. My little note next to that is she's 9. What a great character. Um, hmm, I'm going to say this. I'm not to spoil anything down ahead, but characters that Frank, and he does this deliberately. That certainly we're going to have a big jump in a number of years when we get to the next book. But characters that are kind of underused, if you like. I don't know if Ghanima is underused. I wouldn't say that's the case. Actually, I think she's quite impressive from the get go, and almost up until this point, possibly more impressive than Leto. Um, you know, but one of the big sad things for me was, and it makes sense within the storyline stuff, is that we didn't end up with a God Emperor and a God Empress, if you like. That she kind of, it's a pity that she didn't just at some point decide, you know what, I'll go for the immortality too, and join you in wormhood, if you like. But certainly we're getting the presentation of this little girl is extremely deadly. Um, as no matter what happens with the Denis Villeneuve franchise, etc., you're never going to see this character on screen properly. Oh, sorry, no, you probably could actually. I'm getting her mixed up. Sorry, I'll take that completely back. But I was thinking about Alia actually. That's what I was overlapping, and we didn't get to see Alia as a deadly baby, if you like, a deadly child. In Denis Villeneuve's version, it is possible we could see a couple of child actors play this, but again, they probably just make them older, which is what the TV series did, you know. But Deadly Children, I think, quite interesting. Just catch up with your comments there, folks. There's G said, "Evening dog, let the Spice Times fold." Hi G, how you doing? Say a big hello to everybody up in Larne there, folks. If you're up there, thanks very much for joining me. Cynthia said, "Oh, here we go." Cynthia said, "My text says a collision between mortal flesh and the outer chaos of the universe." Right, here we are. Collision between mortal flesh and the outer chaos. Right, is it? Right, let's find that. Bear with me a wee second. Thank you. There's a couple in this chapter, I think. The other chaos. Yeah, it didn't quite make sense, did it? Two. Yeah, I've got other. You said other text has outer. Yeah, my text has got other. There we go. That's the first of them. Here we go. Thank you very much, Cynthia. I could do a wee bit better light over here. Bear with me a wee second, folks. I'll just bring it up over. It's not too bad on the screen. There we go. Just for my, that's better. Yes, mine says should be able to identify as a collision between mortal flesh and the other chaos of the universe, and it should be the outer chaos of the universe. Outer. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a kind of us and them thing, isn't it? Inside and outside, Fremen and everyone else, if you like. That would make more sense. Just the other chaos. The other chaos would suggest that they're chaos, wouldn't it? Right, thank you very much. Let me just fix that. There we go. And it's the right, outer chaos. And I need an arrow up there. There we go. Mine's the same as that. Yeah, thank you. Bojack, thank you very much, folks. Yeah, I've got a couple. And again, you know, I think I've got them marked anyway. I've got a couple of things that I'm not too sure of, and I think I kind of know what they should be. But yeah, up ahead I've got an unhidden, which I think should be an unbidden. If you see what I mean. Yeah, we'll get to them, folks. But thank you very much. And by the way, thank you for. Interestingly enough, just because I've got multiple copies, but multiple copies that I have the same mistakes in them. If it wasn't for you guys checking these copies for me, we wouldn't find this stuff. So as always, thank you very much for following the book pretty closely with us as we do this. It's for your diligence, you know, and your close eye. You're spotting, Bojack. Yeah, we're spotting stuff, aren't we? Um, no, I'm also getting a general sense, by the way, having looked at some notice boards and stuff over the last week or two, just in relation to trying to see if anybody knew who the Priestess of Jowf was. That there seems to be quite a lot of readers of the Dune series who are well aware that they're loaded with mistakes. It's not just us, apparently. So there you go. That's interesting. But yeah, I don't we just love this bloodthirsty Ghanima. Here we go. No enemy awaited her at the Quanet. Even the search parties had gone elsewhere. She crossed the water on an earth bridge, crept through tall grass towards the covert exit of the siege. That's my bad handwriting. Work at work there, folks. I keep picking pens up and losing. Let me just tidy that. Yeah, towards the covert exit of the siege. Abruptly, light flared ahead of her, and Ghanima threw herself flat on the ground. Oh, I've written that out twice. Oh dear. I managed to get out of my really bad sleep flip, by the way, folks, so I'm kind of feeling more refreshed. But I hate working at this stuff when I'm knackered. But there we go. Let's see. I'll read that again. She crossed the water on an earth bridge, crept through tall grass toward the covert exit of the siege. Abruptly, light flared ahead of her, and Ghanima threw herself flat on the ground. She peered out through stalks of giant alfalfa. A woman had entered the covert passage from the outside, and someone had remembered to prepare that passage in the way any siege entrance should be prepared. In troubled times, one greeted anyone entering the siege with bright light, temporarily blinding the newcomer and giving guards time to decide. I've done that again. Bear with me a second, folks. Yeah. Oh, just right. I've written words out twice. But such a greeting was never meant to be broadcast out over the desert. The light visible here meant the outer seals had been left aside. When I was reading this, again, I'm just going forward a chapter at a time, but I had sort of questioned, not a Fremen, perhaps. But of course, we're going to find out that's not true. Pardon me. Ghanima felt a tug of bitterness at this betrayal of siege security. This flowing light, the ways of the lace-shirt Fremen were to be found everywhere. Lace-shirt Fremen, fantastic. Another term, I suppose, part of the evolution of the Fremen. And what I love about this is it's a great term, I suppose, but we can think of Fremen. We've got Ghanima basically here. I'm pure Fremen, raged up, ready for slaughter, no guilt. I'll need a target. Point me at it. It's House Carino, time to kill. And that's just the general gist of what we're getting from her. The term lace shirt Fremen again is to do with, isn't it, these clothes that, as it seemed to imitate possibly stealth suits, or else the fact that they're just walking around in this kind of clothing, lace shirts in the heat. But it's part of the transition, if you like, of what's happened to the Fremen, and this is essentially her mental process that we're getting from the third person omniscient narrator, but it's telling us what she thinks of them. It's part of the evolution of the Fremen, I suppose. Fremen, we could argue, to lace shirt Fremen to ultimately museum Fremen. But it's an interesting term. The ways of the lace shirt Fremen were to be found everywhere, and we've got a wee exclamation mark thrown down on top of that. Not a happy bunny. And not happy about, I suppose, the level of light pollution coming from the covert exit, the secret entrance to the siege. The light continued to throw its fan over the ground at the cliff base. A young girl ran out of the orchard's darkness into the light, something fearful about her movements. Ghanima could see the bright circle of a glow globe in the passage, a halo of insects around it. The light illuminated two dark shadows in the passage, a man and the girl. They were holding hands as they stared into each other's eyes. Ghanima sensed something wrong about the man and woman there. They were not just two lovers stealing a moment from the search. The light was suspended above and beyond them in the passage. The two talked against a glowing arch, throwing their shadows into the outer night, where any would be. Hang on. Pardon me. Is that a mistake, actually? Let me just check there. Oh, bear with me. Yeah, this is probably one, folks. I'll just read that again. Their shadows into the outer night where any I've got could be a watcher of their movements. That doesn't really flow well at all, does it? Into the out. What I've got again, I'll just read that to you. If you could check that for me. Yeah, I'll just do that sentence again. It's the two talked against a glowing arch, throwing their shadows into the outer night, where any could be a watcher of their movements. I suppose that probably is okay. Where anyone, that's what we need, isn't it? That's partly, hang on, there we go. Where anyone, sorry, it could be, that's my mistake, could be. Anyone could be a watcher of their movements. Yeah, that makes sense. Sorry, folks, I left out one belonging to anyone there. That's just one of my wee mistakes. I'll read that again. Sorry. The two talked against the glowing arch, throwing their shadows into the outer night, where any one could be a watcher of their movements. Now and again, the man would free a hand. The hand would come gesturing into the light, a sharp and furtive movement, which, once completed, returned to the shadows. Lonely sounds of night creatures filled the darkness around Ghanima, but she screamed out such distractions. It's a nice little bit of writing there again. What is it about those two? The man's motions were so static, so careful. Now, this guy's called Palam Basha, I suppose. Here we go. He turned, reflection from woman's. Hang on. Goodness gracious. Sorry, you'll have to bear with me today, folks. Yeah, okay. He turned. Reflection from woman's robe illuminated him. That sounds wrong as well, doesn't it? That's actually what I've got here. Exposing a raw red face with a large blotchy nose. Ghanima drew in a deep breath. In a deep, silent breath of recognition. Palam Basha. He was a grandson of a naib whose sons had fallen in Atreides' service. The face, and another thing revealed by the open swinging of his robe as he turned, drew for Ghanima a complete picture. He wore a belt beneath the robe, and attached to the belt was a box which glistened with keys and dials. It was an instrument of the Twi'leksu or the Ixians, for certain. And it had to be the transmitter which had released the Tigers. Palam Basha. This meant another Naibit family had gone over to House Corrino. So that's all quite interesting, isn't it? Bojack was saying his was the same as Cynthia's. Mike Finney saying this is when Ghanima kills Palam Basha. It is indeed. It's a good one. This I like it. Popping in, there's Nathan Gradoville saying, popping in to say hi, Doc. Working my way through Children of Dune. Hope to join you all live for the next book. Hope all is well. Excellent. Thank you very much, Nathan. Good, very much good to have you here. I hope you're enjoying it. You'll probably get caught up, I'd imagine. Saying that, we do have don't have Gab a fair bit here, don't we? Yes, indeed. Palam Basha here now is a few things. First of all, raw red face with a large blotchy nose. That kind of nose suggests alcoholism. Everyone I know has got a nose like that. It's an alcoholic. As simple as that. Or it could be a different type of drug. Raw red face with a large blotchy nose. I don't know. It could be just the environment, I suppose. But these are, I think, we're getting the sense that these are lace shirt Fremen. I don't think these people are having too much of a hard time in the harsh desert conditions. We're told that he's a grandson of a naib whose sons had fallen in Atreides' service. In other words, he lost his father in the service of the Atreides. That's a roundabout way of saying the same thing. So it's possible that that's a reason for his resentment or his treachery. Let's see, where are we? And he's the operator of the Laza Tigers. Should be laser tigers, shouldn't it? So Palam Basha, again, I've noticed a few people trying to figure out this word. So here, I'll tell you something. Doing the work on this chapter has been a wee bit interesting. But for anybody who's into this kind of thing, if you want to have a go at some of this stuff yourself, most of the time, I can use a term and just go with etymology. A lot of time you won't find a particular word or something like that. Frank mucks around with them a wee bit. Palam Basha, if you do the work on that word, you'll find it doesn't really exist. But if you, this is what Frank does a lot. He'll split the word up syllabically or into two phrases, etc. And he's creating compound words, if you like. So if you look for Palam Basha, you probably won't find much at all. But if you look for Palam and then Basha, that's the way to go about it. So Palam is Hungarian, from the noun pali, and the plural being palik, and is slang for a mug, a dupe, a sucker, a naive person, someone who's easily deceived, but can also mean a guy, a bloke, a chap, I suppose I would say a geezer, to add my own terminology to it. It's possibly also Greek from palin, which pertaining to a place means back or backwards, or if it's relating to time can mean again or like once more or to anew, if you like. And again, that's from the Greek pali. Now, an example of that word being partly to do with palim is a word that's palimpsest, which is maybe a word that some of you know. Palimpsests, and that would be spelled PALIM, the same as our palim here. Would it be with a PSET on the end? Pardon me. Palimpsests or parchments from the ancient world that have how would you put it? That have had their original work scraped off and then reused, if you like. That's what a palimpsest is. Again, from that sense of the word again, but I really think it is from the Hungarian for mug or dupe or a sucker, and then because Basha then we have is the Arabic pronunciation of the Turkish word pasha, which is a title, for example, like sir or master or chief or boss, that kind of thing. So if you want to translate Palam Basha's name with what Frank intends here, is we've got a leader who is a sucker, essentially, as one way of putting it, a leader who is a dupe, a mug, naive, if you like. And in that case, his name fits perfectly, I think, as he's been suckered into this conspiracy, and it's going to result in deadly little Ghanima sorting him out. So there you go. Palam Basha, from two words. Palam, the Hungarian word for essentially a sucker, a naive person. I love the word sucker. It's great. Was it growing up? Was it Mr. T in the 18? Would you sucker? I think it was great. But what was it? There's a film. My favorite Western of all time is a film called it's A Fistful of Dynamite. It's a Sergio Leone movie. But I think in America it's called Duck You Sucker, if I'm not mistaken. And the first time I ever saw it, I've got it on DVD as A Fistful of Dynamite. It's is it Rod Steiger and James Coburn? It's the one about the IRA bomber in the Wild West, or in the Mac, is it? And they go to rob the bank. That's hilarious. I love it. It's a great film. Oh dear, oh dear. Well, I'd lost my train of thought there for a second there. Oh yeah, just the use of the word sucker. I always thought that's the same film, Fistful of Dynamite, also known as Duck You Sucker. But yeah, there we go. So Palam Basha is a leader who is a sucker. And I think that's great. There is another, I had another possibility of it just with Basha, but it would be spelled different, is that there's a Basha with an extra A in the word. Basha, who's an Old Testament king of Israel, whose dynasty's doom was foretold, which I kind of, for a wee bit, I thought that might have been it. But I think what we have there in terms of the Hungarian first part of the word, the Turkish second part of the word is pretty much bang on for this guy. So who was the woman then? No matter. She was someone being used by Palam Basha. This one, I think, is a mistake, folks. Here in my book, I have unhidden. A Bene Gesserit thought came into Ghanima's mind. Each planet has its own period, and each life likewise. I think that should be unbidden. Could maybe somebody check that for me, please? Because I have a funny feeling it is. The reason why is it's, again, just some of the language tricks that Frank uses, because we have something unbidden. Unbidden with B for Bravo there later on. Thank you. Yeah, I figured as much. It makes much more sense. Thank you. It is, and I was pretty certain about it. Let's just confirm it. And you're unbidden. There we go. I'll put a big tick there. It is unbidden. Thank you very much. Yes, I have unhidden. It's interesting, just one little letter, but we could spot them. You get, I don't know, I think we're that used to looking for them now. But yeah, unbidden, yes. A Bene Gesserit thought came into Ghanim's mind. Each planet has its own period, and each life likewise. All things to all things their time, if you like. She recalled Palam Basha well, watching him there with that woman, seeing the transmitter, the furtive movements. Palam Basha taught in the Sietch school mathematics. The man was a mathematical bore. He had attempted to explore. Sorry, hang on a second. Let me just check that. Sorry, folks. 12. All right. Yes, the man was a mathematical bore. Sorry, as opposed to bore. As a tricky one for Northern Irish people to separate the sounds. So I do apologise. The man was a mathematical bore. He had attempted to explain Muad'Dib through mathematics. Until censured by the priesthood, he was a mind slaver, and his enslaving process could be understood with extreme simplicity. He transferred technical knowledge without a transfer of values. And Ghanima's thoughts here are, I should have suspected him earlier, she thought. The signs were all there. Interestingly enough, therefore, if we consider this, I don't know if you remember, guys, what Muad'Dib means. Within the book, I suppose, teacher of boys, but in Arabic, it's slightly different spelling with emphasis, I think, but it means a private tutor. I am one, for example. So is, oddly enough, so is Palam Basha, if you want to look at it, he's a tutor. Very interesting little thing here, I think, harkening back to certain things within education in ancient Greece, if you like. But he taught in the Sietch school mathematics. He's a mathematical bore. He had attempted to explain Muad'Dib through mathematics. That's kind of interesting. He's until censored by the priesthood. It almost has a wee bit of a suggest. There's almost a bit of a hint of Harry Seldon about this guy. Does that make sense? If you understand what I mean by that. He's attempting to explain a historical personage. I'm going by Muad'Dib and everything that happens through mathematics until he's basically warned about it by the priesthood. He's a mind slaver. So he enslaves minds. His process is that he transfers technical knowledge without a transfer of values. And it's an interesting thing to teach certain things without passing on values. And in some cases, for example, it can be to teach the wrong people certain things. Then, there are certain people that you shouldn't teach certain things to, if you understand me. You shouldn't teach psychopaths martial arts skills or any of that kind of thing. That's, if you understand. If you know someone's a psychopath, don't make them more dangerous than they already are. Don't train them. Yes, technical knowledge without a transfer of values. You know stuff. I know all sorts of ridiculously bad things. I'm also well trained in ethics, morality, axiology, all of these kind of things. I know the difference between right and wrong, and I can apply it to all sorts of subjects and all sorts of dangerous knowledge. And there are people that I would not teach certain subjects to at all. I wouldn't want to teach them anything, because everything that they know makes them more dangerous, if you see what I mean. But at the same time, I'm very happy to pass on. I teach maths. I try to pass on kind of the cultural heritage of maths and try to make it a bit interesting for kids, and again bring in the ancient world a lot. In particular, Sumerians and Egyptians, and I'll talk about the Sumerians with base 60. I'll go to the Egyptians for fractions and things like this, and just try to make it a bit more interesting. And often show, sometimes that the reasons for the development of certain things, for example, division and fractions and all of that kind of stuff. How do you divide up food? How do you do this kind of thing fairly? How do you tax people fairly? You need mathematics, don't you? Well, you don't actually. You can just take everything. That's despotism and dictatorship, isn't it? Pardon me. But yeah, so this is kind of, we don't get too much about this guy. The question we can probably ask, because I suppose we're going to get to it in a wee minute too, is the question about his companion. Is therefore his companion, who we're going to find out is called Muraz. Has his companion been mind slaved, if you like, by this tutor, this maths teacher? Oh, it's interesting, I suppose. Don't know what you guys think, but I should have suspected him earlier. She thought the signs were all there. She knows him, and she seems to have given a pretty astute kind of sort of look at this guy. This is kind of, she recalled this is what Ghanima's remembering about him. This is what he is to her. And, should have suspected him earlier, I suppose, the signs that he's not quite right, if you like. Then I like this, but then with an acid tightening of her stomach, he killed my brother. No, he didn't. But this is again reinforcing and imprinting the narrative that she's going to feed everybody else, that Leto is dead, and that this guy's going to be part of her evidence. And she's going to kill. Oh dear. Let me just catch up with your comments, folks. Let's see. Where are we? Ping. Oh goodness, we're all the way back here. Let's see. Oh, something is saying. Right, there we go. We had Nathan saying, popping in to say hi. Cynthia, I think that's where we're at. I also wonder about the woman's robe being reflective. Doubt a traditional still suit is reflective. They may reflect the property of her lace shirt outfit. Mike saying maybe a white or light colored shirt. I was kind of going that we'd heard about in the previous chapters, people wearing clothes that kind of had printed, like the design of a still suit on them, a bit like t-shirts where you can see, it looks like the skin of somebody's muscles, or that kind of thing, if you know what I mean. That I got a sense that sort of stuff was going on, but I kind of lace shirt, sorry, kind of lace shirt. I was thinking something like that, or linen or something. It's still a bloody hot planet. But simply, I suppose, non-practical clothing, if you like. And is this a term that Gavin has come up with? Is it a term that's in general use at this point? But it certainly seems quite contemptible. The ways of the lace shirt. There's got the lace shirt fitted would be found everywhere. These guys are everywhere now. It's her bitterness at these people. They're not. So the sense is that they're not following seat security. They're not closing moisture seals. They're not. Keep maintaining kind of moisture security. That's the term I was looking for. They're not dressing like Fremen, but they have the appearance of, and maybe they're in some kind of, as I say, cultural crisis, I think, as well. And again, as their planet is changing, so are they. And we're going to see the aspirations of this Palam Basha here in a moment. What is he doing all this for? why is he trying to kill these two twins, and what's his payment, if you like? If he's a Blade Runner, what's his electric sheep? It's a government job. It's a bit shit. It's a bit sad, isn't it? From someone who's meant to be the grandson of a Naib and probably should have become a Naib himself one day. Pardon me. But yeah, as Mike Finney's saying there, I might maybe a white or light coloured shirt. Yeah, just not a still suit, basically. Yeah, I think it wouldn't really matter what the clothing was if simply put, if it wasn't practical, if it wasn't the kind of normal siege clothing, then it's what's this? This kind of thing, to be content for it. And it's all in a funny way. It's kind of that as much as they have contempt for the siege security, it's almost having a contempt for the nature of their own planet as well, and their place in it. And I think maybe that's an interesting thing. Maybe we can think of the epigraph in those terms there now. About the journeys afoot and the brutal treatment that Arrakis reserves for anything mechanical. But it's the Arrakis is the implicit awareness that Arrakis is the ultimate mirror for the soul. And there's a lot to do with. In fact, something, we're going to have to take a wee sort of separate episode out of the book. We'll probably do it as an extra thing. We should do it soon, just to run in with a few things. One of them was that we were going to run through Lord Raglan's work on ritual and tradition, which is really important in this. But the other one that I promised to kind of run through with you guys was, is it Marie-Noël Zander's work on the idea of the second skin, what's called the WAPO, in their paper, and it's based. So it's a paper on Leto II and the second skin, if you like. We have a lot of that in this book. The idea of clothing as a second skin, if you like. And in many ways, if you like, we're going to have a look at Leto acquiring a new skin. In some ways, that the Fremen are shedding theirs, aren't they? Because the still suit, we've heard this from Farad'n in the previous chapter, is everything to understand about the Fremen. And I think, doesn't he point out, it's both the presence of a thing can teach you about something, and the absence of a thing can teach you of something. So the very fact that, if you like, that we have the absence of the still suit with these two Fremen who are engaged in nefarious, we'll call it nefarious desert murderous business, if you like. If I was up to anything anywhere near this desert, I would personally, if I was on Arrakis, want the best Fremen still suit going. And I'd certainly want a Frem kit to go with it to repair it, because it's it's just that kind of planet, isn't it? But it shows again the changes in clothing reflect the changes in the Fremen, and they're everywhere now. By the way, this isn't one or two young Fremen getting down with the Imperial kids and trying on the latest fashions. It seems to be spread quite badly. It's planet wide. The Fremen are going soft, and their attitudes have changed, and I suppose their desires have changed as well. And I think that this chapter is very good for getting a bit of insight into the man. From Ghanima's point of view, who sees herself as a pure Fremen, getting into the head of a Fremen when it comes to this kind of the nasty business of life on this planet, violence and murder and stuff like that, killing, shall we say, and how that works. And you can rest assured when as somebody pointed out, Palin Bash has got it coming here in a minute, but certainly Ghanima is going to feel no guilt for that whatsoever. Maybe a show of how new Fremen care more for fashion than utility. That's a great way of putting it, Bojack. Thank you. Yes, indeed. I love utility. And I'm not, well, I don't know. I like a wee bit of fashion, but nothing too much. I don't like labels and all this kind of stuff, but I like practical clothes. Saying that, I wear a big pair of 1970s black flares today. That's the most impractical flares you'll see. Yeah, and then Cynthia was confirming, yes, my text says unbidden. Thank you. Palambash is the Charlie Brown adult. Gold Charlie Brown. Yeah, I suppose he's not. It's an interesting character, but he's not around long enough to really kind of get your teeth into him. But he's certainly he's well written, and just the brief presentation of him. And if we did the work on his name, it really does add a lot of meaning to it, doesn't it? This guy's a sucker. He's he's trying to kill the two of the universe's deadliest individuals, whether they're 9 year olds or not. He should have had a bit of sense about this. These are Muad'Dib's kids. And I don't know. Does anybody know that Leto managed to help his father kill someone as a just you know? With these children from the moment of birth. You would think something had got out, but he's not too bright, is he? And he seems to be a bit of a predator in terms of using education. He teaches, a mind slaver. Again, as I said, we're going to have to wonder about I suppose it's something that we're going to be left to wonder about, but sort of Miraz's place in all this, has she been kind of mentally enslaved by this guy? I was catching up with comments there because there were loads, so bear with me. I thought it was let me see. Christopher Carter. Hey, Christopher. I thought it was a little mouse good at conserving water in terms of name selection. Was that Muad'Dib? Sorry, back a few wee comments there, Christopher. I think that's what you're talking about. The word, I think the term Muad'Dib is I wouldn't be pronouncing it right, but I do know that it's a private tutor in Arabic. Psychohistory, that's right. That's what I was wondering about. Is this a little, if you know what I mean, to Asimov? There's lots of connections to this book and to Foundation series. The original trilogy, anyway. It kind of sounded, he's trying to explain Muad'Dib through mathematics. He's a mathematical bore, and he enslaves people. I don't know. It's an interesting thing, but the description of what he's doing, trying to explain Muad'Dib through mathematics, as Bojack points out, would suggest psychohistory, wouldn't it? I don't know. It's interesting. There's occasional references to other science fiction writers in the Dune series, and there's a few characters whose names are we've spotted two or three, I think, so far as we've been through the Dune book clubs. Characters whose names are anagrams of other science fiction writers, that kind of thing. As again, we're on the lookout for them. If we spot them, we'll let you know. But we spotted a few, I think, so far. Not too many. But yes, indeed, that just got me thinking. Palambash, as I said, is a well-written a character that appears on the pages very briefly here, but and we don't really get to see much of him. But it's just what we learn of him. He's kind of intriguing, Well, I found him intriguing up until we figured out why he was doing this, I suppose. No, you killed my brother. Oh, hang on, still on the comments, folks. I do apologize. Let me see. Have a mixed speech. There we are. Did Palambash unintentionally figure out the mathematics of the Kwisatz Haderach plan? Well, he's been put down in relation to that in a funny way, hasn't he? He's been censured, told off, stern warning kind of thing by the priesthood. They're certainly not happy about it. Quite possibly. It's a thing that we'll never know. It's an intriguing thing, isn't it? Suddenly here's a guy who's attempting to, we're reading all these books and have all these future histories about Muad'Dib and the mystery of Muad'Dib and all of this stuff. And here's a Fremen who's had a go at it mathematically in the time of Muad'Dib. And if we start to understand the kind of the way these books are kind of written in terms of future histories, if you like, excuse me, we have all sorts of interesting little documents with biographies, we've got histories, we've got hagiographies, all of this kind of stuff. But here's someone who's having to go at it mathematically. And well, it's kind of intriguing, and I kind of enough to that it's got the priesthood annoyed. Pardon me. I'm wondering kind of what that's about. Excuse me, folks. I got to blow my nose a wee second here. I'll just mute the microphone quickly. Oh goodness, my ears are popping. I kind of need to blow some air out of my eyes. Well, oh, sorry about that, folks. Don't know what that sounded like to you. Oh, that's better. Or is it? No, my hearing's out on one side. Bear with me a wee second, folks. Oh, goodness gracious. Sorry about that. That's like having my brain tickled. Oh, I've got a negative pressure thing going on. Oh, sorry about that, folks. Sometimes my hearing goes a wee bit funny on me. Right, where were we? Sorry, yes, I had a runny nose. Did Pan Basha unintentionally figure out the mathematics of the Kwisatz Haderach plan? It seems to have struck a nerve, hasn't it, with the priesthood? That's what we're told here. That's one of those things I don't think we're ever going to know, but it's kind of, I wonder what that's about. So this in Arabic speech says that would explain why he was censored. Cynthia saying, Ghanima's critique of Palam Basha, that he transfers technical knowledge without values, recalls Alia's concern about encroaching Tailaxu tech from the outskirts of the empire. It's a really good point. And we're also, I suppose we're going to get that tied in, Cynthia, with the fact that the technology that he's using, that transfer is either, we're told here, probably, it was an instrument of the Tailaxu or the Ixians for certain. It's one of the two of them. And that's that, the tech from the outskirts of the empire. And it comes new technology, can you, you too can control your own pair of Laza Tigers with a brand new Tailaxu Tiger box. So, no ethics required. Yeah. Very good. Mike finishing, it is ironic that John W. Campbell loved Foundation, which had future predictions as a central element, but hated Dune for the same reason. I don't think he hated Dune, Mike. I think he was a big enough fan of Dune, and that if there's some letters etc. between Herbert and John W. Campbell, it's not Dune that was the problem, and it was Dune Messiah, and it was. I've got some videos on this if you want to check them out, Mike. If you have a look at my channel, we've got the Dune piled higher and deeper stuff. I suppose it's split up in different ways, but if it's actually, you can look at the 36 episode kind of thing. That's every little chapter. But there's a version of it where it's in 10 episodes, and that's the chapters in its entirety. And if you have a look at the one on the hero as the major theme, it was really the inversion of what he did in Dune Messiah that's what really got up John W. Campbell's nose. And he really, really didn't like the inversion of Paul Atreides as a hero. That was his bother, and so that's why he refused to publish Dune Messiah, and so it wasn't published in analog at all. And then of course Herbert inverted the thing, but the whole point, I suppose, that the thing that I make an argument for is that Dune works on a number of different levels, but in its relationship to the hero is one of its really important themes. That actually works on several different levels itself. And is a comment on different types of heroes, but in particular, the heroes that were being written at that time, there was an awful lot of these kind of we call them the Van Votian kind of heroes that based after a character called Johnny Cross in a book called Slam, and it was just everybody was churning these out, and they're pardon me, they kind of start around the same time as you get Superman, 1930, late 30s onwards, 1938 for Superman, I think. So they're basically kind of disaffected Ubermensch, if you like, is the way I might put it. Slan is the book to look at. It's meant to be the archetype, if you like, for that character, if you like. And so Dune is very much an attack against that type of hero. As much as there's a lot to do with that's what you would call the traditional classical Greek hero, if you like, in that sense, and then but in particular, and then the hero in general, if you like, and also how, as we know, it's how dangerous heroes are for society is one of the main warnings of Dune. And again, what we were just talking about, having to get an episode one day to run through Raglan, a lot of the ideas of ritual and tradition that are kind of being thrown out, particularly in this book. I really wanted to get the right time to stop and have a talk about them, and I don't think we've found that. I think it might have been a little bit back, but we've had a little mention of ritual again here. So I'm actually maybe going to take an episode of the book club where we're not going to do a chapter at all, but we'll try and read you a lot of this stuff. That this is Raglan's opinions, and by the way, so this is Herbert's opinions, if that makes sense. He's his major mythological source in terms of his steps that he sends Paul Atreides through. And it's quite interesting if you look at the books that influence this in terms of the heroes, and there's a little journey that you can take through them chronologically speaking, if you like. But Raglan's the biggest influence, mythologically speaking, on Herbert. It's not John Campbell. Hang on, Joseph Campbell. Sorry, I get the Campbells mixed up. Joseph Campbell, the hero of 1,000 faces. That's got a lot of Jungian stuff on it, but his work is a development of Raglan's with a Jungian twist, isn't it? Basically, yeah, and not the best, quite frankly. I think it's still an interesting read, but the idea of the monomyth, I'm quite happy to say, is absolute bollocks. There we go. It's not true. I don't believe in it. And again, I think there's a lot of I'm going to have to reread it again sometime, but I don't agree with Campbell at all. There we go. Plenty of things I don't agree with about Raglan as well. But their works are both worth reading, Sorry to jump off of one there. But but he did love Foundation. You're quite right. But we have a character in Foundation series called the Mule, which I'm sure you know about, Mike. And again, we kind of have relationships between that character and Paul Atreides, for example. The Mule is something quite similar, and again, a very, very dangerous individual. I've just been listening, Mike, to the Foundation on audiobooks, the old BBC audiobooks. They're a bit annoying once they actually get into it, but there's all these kind of widdly woo noises and stuff like that, and they kind of overpowered a bit sometimes. It's a bit annoying. Once they actually get talking, it's grand. I've been quite enjoying it. In fact, I'm one chapter away from the Mule in the audiobooks. Pardon me. But it's there is a thing that I don't think that Campbell kind of got what Herbert was doing with this type of hero. But Campbell absolutely loved Superman type characters, these kind of Vaudian heroes, and they're a bit, Paul Atreides is an attack against that kind of hero. There's other aspects to it as well. So in one level, it's an attack against the standardized science fiction hero of the time. I find heroes like that to be, quite frankly, very tedious, very boring, and altogether not far off the kind of heroes that you find in the likes of American comics, the Marvel superheroes, that kind of things, the whole point is there's a lot of people don't get. People will call Paul a villain. People will call Paul an anti-hero. They'll call him all sorts of things, but he absolutely fundamentally is the hero of these books. He is the hero, and he is a hero. and he is heroic. It's just he makes mistakes, and boy does he make mistakes. If you see, I mean, that's the message that Frank's trying to. Heroes are dangerous, but superheroes therefore should be super dangerous. I think, but they're fallible. They can make mistakes, and it's about sort of giving all your faculties over to someone that you worship in some shape or form. And again, there's likes of Campbell's work and oh, sorry, not Campbell's work. Who am I thinking of? Fraser's work and there's another one there. Raglan's about the idea of different types of hero. You can have a hero as an author, hero as a politician, hero as a judiciary, hero as a sage, hero as a warrior, hero as a poet, hero, all of these kind of things. Hero as a politician. Yeah. Good. It's good. It's a fascinating subject. So you've got me off on one. I'll have to bring it back to the text here, folks. Julian's in the future history of Dune. The in-universe scholarship is very metatextual. Palam Basha, Hark al-Ada, and Hadi Benotto all write critically about the universe they live in. Yeah, it's part of what gives through the epigraphs. Part of what gives the universe its sense of verisimilitude, because it really is such a way out there universe that it probably shouldn't have one. But because it's backed up with, it's the same as Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, it's backed up with language, it's backed up with literature, with history, with music, with religion. There's a cultural, food and drink and stuff and all that kind of thing. There's a cultural purveyance throughout the books that gives it a level of gravitas and reality, regardless of the fact that there's giant worms and people transcending time and space, that kind of thing, Yes, indeed. I love metatextuality. Is great. My favorite one for that of them all is Hyperion. If anyone's not read Hyperion Cantos, read that. That's metatextual as hell. It's fantastic. Based loosely on the Canterbury Tales, but it's got so much more going on in it. And to a degree, the poetry of Keats, by the way. Mike Finch, interesting. I hadn't heard that, but I'll try to check out the series. Thanks. No worries, Mike. It's part of my PhD, mate. But if you want just to look at that stuff, there's a good. There's the first episode on the hero in Frank Herbert's Dune series is a big introduction to all of that. So it'll give you all the information, and there's footnotes and references and stuff with it if you want to check out any of the reading. But yeah, it's probably, we've been doing the book club for a while there, but way back we've set up published the PhD as a set of videos here on the channel. Oh, interesting. I hadn't thought about it. Trying to check out the series. He lived long enough to make a mistake. Who are you referring to? Have a mixed speech. Sorry, I just missed that one. Paul. Yes, indeed. Thank you. Yes, indeed. And boy, was it a whopper. And we'll ultimately get there because this is the last book that features Paul, if you like. As we can discuss whenever we're done, that we'll have looked at him in such great detail, whether you agree with the statement that he is a hero, because when I'm at the end of this book, as much as he's done terrible things, and that's the real problem that we have as readers, we have to really question Paul Atreides. If we do not look at him with any kind of critical eye, it says a lot about us, because he does some ridiculously bad things. And his real problem is that he's kind of lost in the future, and things are done in his name more than really him actively doing them. The question is, I suppose, can he redeem himself? Does he try to redeem himself? And is he redeemable? Is he that bad? Or is he a hero at the end of the day? And ultimately, in relation to what we were also talking about, heroes, in relation to the Greek type of hero, Mike, is that they're all tragic. Not a single one has a good ending. And most of them are quite dodgy individuals, to be honest with you, but they're pretty heroic in their own ways, But many of them come to quite a bad end, actually. Now, there we go. Let me see where we got to, folks. It was It was Palambasha the boar. Yes, he killed my brother. Right. Okay, here we go. She forced herself to calmness. Palambasha would kill her too if she tried to pass him there in the covert passage. Now she understood the reason for this unfremen display of light, this betrayal of the hidden entrance. They were watching by that light to see if either of their victims had escaped. It must be a terrible time of waiting for them, not knowing. And now that Ghanima had seen the transmitter, she could explain certain of the hand motions. Palambasha was depressing one of the transmitter keys frequently, an angry gesture. That didn't quite flow right for me there, and I think there's possibly a mistake there. Let me see. Now that Ghanima had seen the transmitter, she could explain certain of the hand motions. That doesn't make sense to me and sounds like a mistake, as I'm sure it probably is. If someone could maybe check that for me. Saying that, I'm not too sure. Let me see. What number is that? 15. Yeah. All right. She could explain certain of the hand motions. I'm not too sure about that. Carlos says the road to hell is paved with good intentions. It is indeed. And I'll add to that one. No good deed goes unpunished. I can swear by that one. Oh dear. And if anything can go wrong, it will. That's Murphy's Law, isn't it? Mike saying Paul accepted responsibility for his mistakes at the end, at least, even though he couldn't atone for them. Yeah, and again, that's it. We've got to. It's not an easy thing to look at Paul. Yes, he's. It's the problem we have is at the point where I suppose so many billions of people are dead. It's to do with, I suppose, the nature of his prescience, and that it gives him the equivalent of snapshots out of eternity. And we also have to remember that in some ways, Paul is who he is because of the deliberations of other agencies, for want of a better word, up to and including the genetic level. If you see what I mean, he's created. He's a creature in some ways, although he's meant to be a human being just like the rest of us. You also have to realize that whatever Paul is in this, he's not human. He's something else. He's more than, if you see what I mean. And we get a lot of, I suppose, with a huge period of stagnation within this universe, we start to see from the event of Paul onwards shifts in evolution. And we know that others have been at it. We know about the Thylaxu, they had a Kwisatz Haderach that committed suicide, as we're told in Dune Messiah. And we've also got the example, we've got the likes of Hazimir Fenring, who's absolutely fascinating, who we're told is a failed kind of Kwisatz Haderach. He's a genetic eunuch, and because of this problem, that whatever the failure is, that it means that his genetic qualities lend themselves to other things, if you like, being more secretive, hard to find. And we've found out that there's a connection there, a familial connection to the no gene, Right, here we go. Let me just check that. Just jumping forward a bit. Paul accepted. Campbell's idea of the hero is colonial, the individual who goes off and conquers. The ancient Greek world saw heroes as victims of hubris and overreaching. They exist in a cycle of divinity and fall, says Joe. Yeah, hubris is part of that fall, if you like. It's the fatal flaw of the hero, if you like. That's the Shakespearean term, if you like. But yeah, hubris. I've been thinking about hubris a lot lately, actually, with certain individuals, and that hubris kind of is a thing, isn't it? It's the overstepping of your mark, if you like, not knowing your place, generally in relation to the gods, or acting like a god or behaving like a god is usually the indicator that you've committed hubris, and it's at that point you're doomed. What does it say? Whom the gods wish to kill, first they drive mad, as well. Excuse me, let me get this ashtray out of the way here a wee bit. Uh, in the chapter, Campbell's idea, Campbell, it's a system, is what he's created. It's a systemic approach, and I think that's what it really appeals to Herbert in some senses. But Campbell's idea of the hero. Oh, here, hang on, I'm getting confused here. Which Campbell are you talking about, Julian? Before I jump off on one, but I'm assuming you're talking about Joseph Campbell, the mythographer, and not John Wood Campbell Jr., the editor. Can you confirm that with me? But victims, ancient Greek word, so victims of hubris, of hubris and overreaching, that exists in the cycle of divinity and fall. I'm going to argue, though, that Oedipus is not seen that way. I don't think. Again, Oedipus, if you're talking about Joseph Campbell, his work is kind of derivative of Raglan's and other things, and it brings in a lot of Jungian ideas, which aren't correct at the very beginning, if you like. But there's always an exception to the rule. That's why Oedipus is so intriguing, I think, if you like. There's no hubris there. Overreaching, no, it's I tend to go with the Oedipus myth is almost like a car crash for everybody involved, and you just can't, even the gods just don't want to look. But Oedipus tries to do the right thing, and that's there's what we call oh, my brain, let me see, mytho. Oh no, hang on. Oh no, I'm having a brain fart. Can't remember the word I'm thinking on. Bear with me a second. I'm going to have to actually prompt it with my brain. Let's see. Open up mind cabinets. Who are we talking about? Oh, got it. It's okay. I just started typing his name. Iconotropy is the term I'm looking for, which is Robert Graves was the guy's name I was about to type in. It is the deliberate or accidental interpretation of myth, and I think certainly Campbell's guilty of it. Jung is guilty of it in spades, as is Freud, and their ideas about the ancient world aren't that good, but especially their understanding of the myths are poor, I think. I think Freud's understanding of the Oedipus myth is kind of obscene. It's just shit. He doesn't know what he's talking about at all. And I've yet to get a psychologist or a psychoanalyst or anything like that on here to have a go and say anything different about it, because that's the case. If you look into it, if you go look at all the different stuff on the Oedipus myth, get the ancient stuff, you'll get the plays and things from, the Athenian period onwards. But if you can go back into the older myths, you can check out Apollodorus, etc., etc. But the Oedipus myth is fascinating, and again, tying it into all the other stuff around there. But it's certainly nothing that lines up with the kind of psychoanalysis kind of viewpoint of things like the Oedipus complex and stuff like that. So a load of hooey, absolute cack. Dear, oh dear. It's the same with the collective unconscious idea. If you think it's Jung's idea, you'll find it's not. Again, you'll find it in Butler's Erewhon, which is one of the books that Dune ripped off quite a bit, or took a lot of, stole a lot from, to be honest with you. Pardon me. Mine reads, she could explain certain of the hand motions. Right, let's have a look. This is why we paused a wee bit there for a second, folks. I circled it. 15. Right, there we go. Sorry about that. I have Ghanima had seen the transmitter. She could explain certain of the hand motions. Mine's Bojack's saying mine, she could explain certain of the hand motions. You've got the same thing. I missed your reading of the sentence, says Cynthia. For the record, I have, and now that Ghanima had seen the transmitter, she could explain certain of the hand motions. I suppose then it's the same. There's no problem there. I just don't think it reads very well. It doesn't read well at all. I think it's a syntax problem, isn't it? There, but it's not a mistake. I've had yeah. There's been a few of these, but I haven't really gone after them, to be honest with you. But that shouldn't read that way. I don't know. It's the choice of the word certain there. And maybe it's just the word explain behind it as well. Explain certain. She could explain certain hand motions. Is how I would write that. I would use the economy and I would chop off the word of, and I'd get rid of the. And now that Ghanima had seen the transmitter, she could explain certain hand motions. That would make perfect sense to me, and would be. I don't know. I think that's just either superfluous words, making the sentence flow badly. It's maybe just more of a bit of a syntax thing. I don't know if you think what you think, but I didn't. I thought that was a mistake. But no, we've all got the same thing there. Thank you very much. That's where we're at. Angry gesture, right. Julian said, yes, Joseph Campbell. Sorry, Julian. Young is the common denominator for all the archetypal myth. Wait, not for Raglan. Paul and Leto seems to be the realization of the Godhead, and Leto, the collective unconscious, become aware. Something else I was thinking about as well was Paul and Leto, the realization of the Godhead, yes, and the collective unconscious become aware. Archetypal. Yeah, what was I thinking on? It had me thinking on Tiger and the Demolished Man, because I still am hoping to get some. Well, got a wee bit of an announcement to make tonight, if somebody can remind me to make it. That we're going to be starting a new extra program, hopefully once a week. And if you mind me, I'll let you know about it. It reminds me of the Demolished Man and Tiger. I suppose I think one of them's. I think Tiger's kind of Jungian. Pardon me, but the Demolished Man is absolutely 100% Freudian. And I think it's kind of interesting that one book takes you from this guy who's a nobody to this multi-billionaire kind of super nutty kind of the guy that runs the 4 Mile Circus. That's the Tiger. And Demolished Man, you have the world's richest man, basically Elon Musk type. Committing the perfect murder. And it's just very, very Freudian once you get through it, 2 brilliant books. If anybody hasn't read them, they're in a lot of people's science fiction top 10s of all time. I did a video on why some people consider Tiger to be the best sci-fi book of all time. Julian said, I haven't read Erewhon yet for my sins. You'll kick yourself once you read it. If you're a Dune fan, you'll just go, holy shit. What? Because that's what happened to me. You will encounter key things in Erewhon that are absolutely huge concepts in Dune. Erewhon is where you get the Butlerian Jihad from. It is by Samuel Butler, and it is the first book on machine intelligence, arguably artificial intelligence, and it sets out a time frame, Julian, which the Dune universe is in. It gives you a date for it. The machines will take us over. We best be pets, this kind of thing. The Butlerian Jihad is taken from Samuel Butler. And Frank Herbert is a massive, massive liar when it comes to it, and has done his best to deceive everyone. But the minute you read the book, Julian, you'll have him nailed. And you'll just go, oh my goodness. And it's a lot. And you have the Kwisatz, the Tyraxu Kwisatz Haderach that commits suicide from very quickly because of his foreknowledge, if you like, is the pre-Erewhonians. They all kill themselves within 6 months because they're prescient. This is a book written in 1872. You've got the preborn, they've got the unborn. You will go, oh no, And not only that, if you can push forward onto Erewhon Revisit, you'll find that the main character in Erewhon's not got a name, but I can tell you his name is Higgs. But you won't get his name until the Erewhon Revisited. But he's also a kind of a messianic character as well. Pardon me. And the Erebonians live in a culture that's had a revolt against machines. It's ridiculous. Again, check out my PhD videos. It's all there. all of it. You'll get the whole lot. Pardon me. Mike Finney says, I think that is just how Frank Herbert writes, letting words be implied by the structure of the sentence. The human brain tends to fill in missing words like that automatically anyway. Also makes people read faster as a trick. Not me, Mike. It makes me trip. To be honest with you, I'm quite fussy about language. But we have been paying attention. We have got a lot of mistakes in this book. And unfortunately, sometimes we're thinking it's Frank's work, Mike, to be honest with you. And we've been discovering it's not. It's just a slew of publishing errors, which tends to... Pardon me. We've had names spelt wrong. That's the least of our problems. We've had whole words missing, whole sentences missing, a paragraph shifted. We have 3 different starts to the goddamn book. In June Messiah's case, it's a fucking mess in some cases, and it's kind of sad because it's such, there's such good books. But it's got to the point where I find it funny now. Just and we're finding more mistakes than I tend to notice because we've got different copies of the book within the audience, But no, I agree with you, actually. I was saying this before, that I think he plays with syntax a bit to give some of his language a certain kind of formality in some ways, if you like. Yeah, it's interesting. Pardon me. Frank's authorial voice is quite authoritarian sometimes, I think. I wish I could read faster, Mike, and every time I try to do it, I skip words or miss stuff, and I'm one of those people that kind of has to take my time and slow down a bit, Right, here we go, folks. That's our caught up with our comments. Let's punch forward a wee bit with the story. Thank you. We paused there just a bit because I thought that was a wee bit confusing and had asked everybody to check that, but it's just the way it was. Yeah, so this guy is every now and then he's hitting these transmitter keys on this box, frequently with an angry gesture. They're not doing what he wants, clearly. The presence of this pair said much to Ghanima. Likely every way into the siege carried a similar watcher in its depths. She scratched her nose where the dust tickled it. Her wounded leg still throbbed and the knife arm ached when it didn't burn. Should it come to the knife, she would have to use the blade in her left hand. So, deadly little Ghanima, as she's been worming her way along, is a reminder from Frank that this girl's still badly wounded from a giant tiger attack, for want of a better word. A wounded leg and her knife arm ache. She's going to have to go left-handed if she uses the knife. So you'd think that the odds are against her here, wouldn't you? Oh, here, I've scribbled something here. Knife armed 8, have to use the blade in the left hand. No, it was just something I was thinking about, a trial and a hand injury within Dune, etc. Just kind of repetitive things. She's gone through a sort of a trial and been injured in her arm, her whole arm affecting her hand as well, I suppose. And it's the left hand, isn't it? No, it's the right hand. No, it was just, I was kind of wondering about that, but I made a wee note to look at it, but it wasn't the case, I think. So Ghanima thought of using the Mala pistol, but its characteristic sound would be sure to attract unwanted attention. Some other way would have to be found. In other words, and it's interesting because using the pistol here would be easy enough. I understand why she's doing this. You'd actually kind of think, yeah, bang, bang, and that would do these two. And let's get in and go, hey, it's me, But the suggestion is that there'll be others, about 2 perhaps. Using the pistol, it would probably deal with them no problem, but it'd be sure to attract unwanted attention. Might bring someone to her before she gets through into the entrance into the siege. So it's not the easy way she's choosing. Palam Basha turned away from the entrance once more. He was a dark object against the light. The woman turned her attention to the outer night while she talked. There was a trained alertness about the woman, a sense that she knew how to look into the shadows using the edges of her eyes. She was more than just a useful tool then. She was part of the deeper conspiracy. Again, human beings as tools, it's an important term. Often it's quite a big concept within the Dune universe. Human beings is, well, particularly with all the Kynes family, using the Fremen as age, tools for geomorphic change, if you like. Yeah, that's it. How useful people as tools, how useful they are, which is more than just the useful part of the deeper conspiracy. So, not quite sure what that means, but it depends on her relationship, I suppose, to Palam Basha. I was wondering about how to pronounce Palam Basha. Actually, I kind of went with Palam Basha because I thought it sounded more fun. But I thought, was it Palimbasha would be a possibility as well. But I liked Palam Basha, especially it sounded more fun, especially with related to what it means. Now, Ghanima recalled now that the Palam Basha aspired to be a Kaymakam, a political governor under the regency. He would be part of a larger plan, that was clear. There would be many others with him, even here in Tabr. Ghanima examined the edges of the problem, thus exposed, probed into it. If she could take one of these guardians alive, many others would be forfeit. Yeah. In other words, if I can get one of them, I can get quite a few. The rest of them will be, give them up. Kaymakam is a title from the Ottoman Empire, and it basically means the equivalent of a stand-in or a deputy. So he's looking, why is he doing this? There's a conspiracy going on. He wants to get this title. He wants a political position. He aspired, this is what he wants, to be a Kaymakam, a political governor under the regency. Where it would be, who knows? But it would be under Alia's power. And is this part of a larger plan? In other words, for her to put certain people in place, I suppose, her own people, and members of the priesthood, as opposed to, how would we put it, Muad'Dib's having his Fedakeen in a lot of these positions and things like that, possibly. Which I think is why we're told there's so, previously then, why there's so few Fedakeen on Arrakis, is that they've all got good positions in places, except for a certain amount of them. Here's a great word. I love this word. The whiffle of a small animal at the Quanet behind her caught Ghanima's awareness. Dear, that's a great word. How do we look at it there? Whiffle. I think the one thing I will say about, someone was saying there about Frank's writing, is Frank sometimes puts words into books. This was pointed out if you check out some of the audio interviews with Frank Herbert. But a good example of this is someone who I always called Hui Nori. Her name is Hui Nori, according to Frank. And if you, the reason why is it sounds fun. And I think whiffle's a great word to use here, but it sounds fun. It says, oh God, that's an AI. Hang on. Don't want that nonsense. To blow a short gust. Flutter as blown by the wind, etc. Well, a short blower gust. Let me see. Here's a good one. It's in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Maine. It's a male haircut done with electric clippers. What is that? Is that like what I've got? Is that a whiffle? I don't know. Oh God, have I got a whiffle? I trim my hair with clippers. Something smaller, insignificant, a trifle, and obsolete, a fife or small flute. There you go. Also, as a verb to waffle. But in relation to this is the whiffle, isn't it? So I think it's a short blower gust of a small animal. I think it's to do also with like birds. Where is it? There's a verb, was it, to whiffle? Ornithology of a bird to descend rapidly from a height. Once the decision to land has been made, involving fast side slipping first one way and then the other. Great word, whiffle. Not far off wibble. Oh dear, oh dear. The whiffle of a small animal at the quiet behind her caught Ghanima's awareness. Natural sounds and natural things. Her memory searched through a strange, silent barrier in her mind, found a priestess of Jowf, captured in Assyria by Sennacherib. The memories of that priestess told Ghanima what would have to be done here. Palam Basha and his woman there were mere children, wayward and dangerous. Like, that's a little bit of nice dramatic irony there, because obviously she's a child. The way she looks at these two as mere children. They knew nothing of Jowf, knew not even the name of the planet where Sennacherib and the priestess had faded into dust. The thing which was about to happen to the pair of conspirators, if it were explained to them, could not only be explained to them, could only be explained in terms of beginning here. Let me just check that I did that correctly there. And I didn't write it out twice. Let me see. The thing which was about to happen to the pair of conspirators, if it were explained to them, could only be... not the word not is not there. That's superfluous. Sorry about that. I'll read that again, folks. In terms of beginning here. Right. The thing which was about to happen to the pair of conspirators, if it were explained to them, could only be explained to them in terms of beginning here. Yeah. I've just had a bad habit that doing this chapter of rewriting stuff by accident, just doing it twice. Excuse me. Explain in terms of beginning here and ending here. Now, here we have that reference, which was enormous fun. Let's have a wee chat about it. I'll quickly check your comments, folks. Get some fluids here. Oh, by the way, if anybody's not read Erewhon, or if you don't know anything about Samuel Butler, have a look at him on Wikipedia. He's fascinating. He's a really interesting guy. He's a very important figure in 19th century Britain. He is a Victorian, arguably the greatest of the Victorian iconoclasts. Known for his very scathing and public one-sided attack against Charles Darwin over his theories of the theory of evolution by means of natural selection. So there's an awful lot to do with Butler, with Erewhon, and this book. Not just the four major ideas, five if you add in a messianic character, that are directly lifted by Frank Herbert. And the minute you read them, you'll go, I'm not joking. It was a facepalm moment. It completely changed my PhD, was reading that book. And I've caught Frank lying about it, and I've actually caught him within his own work, pretending that he doesn't know anything about Butler. The interesting thing is that I think I know how Frank got into Butler, and it's actually that Samuel Butler's Erewhon is discussed in Paul Bigelow Sears' ecological books. And Paul Bigelow Sears' ecological books are the major ecological influence on Frank Herbert. He's the dryland ecologist. His books are Deserts on the March, which really are all about the Dust Bowl. I've got both of them here. And Where There's Life. And you'll find a reference in that to in Sears' work to the warnings of Erewhon. Erewhon's a very well-known book in its time, and was a bit of a mystery as to who wrote it. So there's a really good background behind it. And you can call it, if you want to categorize it, it is pastoral utopian, slightly dystopian science fiction. And it's funny. But yeah, it's a good book. I enjoyed reading it. Actually, enjoyed reading it. Mike said, I think that is just how Frank Herbert writes, letting words be implied by the structure. Oh, did I miss something there? I think I've read that before. The human brain tends to fill in missing words like that automatically anyway. Yeah, Mike, I teach English here as well. For me, that's a huge problem with kids reading and understanding stuff. Often, it's kind of what you're saying, actually, but often a lot of the times with kids that I teach, is if they don't understand a word, it's a bit like the flip of what you're saying. They'll assume its meaning, and 9 times out of 10 they get it wrong. That's quite interesting. My own son used to do it. It was quite a giggle to him. Occasionally, But yeah, I understand what you're saying. The trick is, Mike, I suppose, maybe I'm not too sure if you know, but I'm kind of annotating the book, so we're finding a lot of the mistakes just to see, and we're examining his writing a fair bit. Excuse me, I'm wheezing here. Oh, hang on. Let me see here. Bojack says, I have the fingers remain numb. Cynthia saying, I also have the added sentence about her numb fingers. Could you tell me where that is, please? After the knife arm ached when it didn't burn. Thank you. Right. There it is. 17. That's my fault again. I've been a bit crap with this chapter, haven't I? This is my turn this time. I've left it out. It is here in my copy. The fingers remain numb. Should it come to the knife? Yeah, hang on. Let's see. I'll just quickly write that in and draw an arrow. Thank you, guys. I've just come out of a ridiculously harsh kind of sleep flip. That's probably, I'm still catching up. I'm a wee bit fatigued, but I'm feeling a lot perkier now that I'm out of it. But I have this kind of forward rolling lack of a time clock. You probably noticed me looking a bit rough and a bit groggy for the last few weeks. But I've managed to get out of it, which is why I'm all perky, but I'm still catching up on my sleep, which is why I think I've made so many of the same mistakes this week. I've either rewritten sentences twice or I've accidentally left something out. So thank you very much for that. Yeah, it's in my copy as well, isn't it? Where did I? Fingers remain 17. Fingers remain numb. Thank you very much. Right, put that in bracket, and that goes when it didn't burn after there. There we go. Right. Hang on. Thank you. Oh, mistakes. Everybody makes them, don't they? Oh, goodness. Right. I still think about the interesting thing is a lot of the mistakes that we do find. A couple of them, I've seen most of them tonight are mine by the looks of it, but they tend not to be Frank's, do they? They're often something to do. We're saying it's been a bit of a mystery in terms of the publishing of these books and what's happened to the master manuscripts, this kind of thing. Right, folks, we got this reference. Here we go. I'll just why. Thank you. Corruption wears infinite disguises. Tlaxe, I like that. Bojack saying after the knife arm went Dunburn. Thank you. Our partner said Darwin's theory needed attacking. To be honest, at the time, of course, it's not just Darwin's theory; it's Alfred Russel Wallace's theory as well. It's presented by two different people. The trick with Butler is that Butler was a total Darwin's amazing, Darwin's brilliant, yeehaw, kind of thing. He was if you look into it, because part of the book is actually made up from an article that he wrote for it was for a New Zealand newspaper. I can't remember the name of it. He wrote it under the name Calarius, I think. It's the part of the book that forms what's known as Darwin. Well, we call it. It's the Book of the Machines. That's it. But I think it's Darwin Among the Machines, something like that. So it's an interesting thing with Butler, and it's a complicated attack. And the other thing is that there already is a lot of people don't know this, is that there already is a dominant kind of existing theory of evolution in existence at the time. And it's called soft inheritance or Lamarckism. And up until Darwin and Russell's theories of evolution by means of natural selection were published, it was the dominant idea. interestingly enough, I suppose the main thing that Butler has a problem with in Darwin's theory is that he the it's two things, I suppose. First of all, it kind of destroys Butler's view of the universe, and it provides him. And again, you'll see why this is such an influential thing on Dune, is it provides him with a very mechanistic view of the universe, and that's the way he looks at things. Man is a machinate animal is a quote by Samuel Butler, and it's in relation to this. But the real problem he had with it, Earl, was that he actually believed that Charles Darwin had plagiarized his grandfather's work, Erasmus Darwin, heavily in presenting his theory of evolution. But again, I suppose the thing that a lot of people forget about, and that really Butler didn't seem to focus on at all, and I think it's probably because of the continued work of Darwin on this work as he goes through the 19th century, but he forgets that someone else came up with this theory too, independently of Charles Darwin. Two people came up with the theory, and the theory of evolution by means of natural selection was presented by two people as a joint paper, who basically whose each man's independent work had verified the others, if you like. So that's the proper story of evolution. Those two theories, if you like. It kind of Darwin's theory does go into a bit of a decline in terms of respect, and there's a resurgence of interest in soft inheritance at that time later on. But yeah, that's the reason. It's not because of it. And you have to understand. Butler's a complicated guy, but it's in part what Darwin's theory does to his view of the earth. Again, I've got videos on this on my channel. Everything you need to know is right there, folks, and they're not too long, and you can either watch the whole influence of Butler and Erewhon and it's the evolution chapter of my PhDs there. It's all there for you guys. Everything's referenced and quoted, and it'll give you a really good, again, it's the introduction, and then it will go into it in detail, but the intro will give you a really good background pardon me, on everything that's going on. But it is really interesting. But yeah, Erewhon, the other book to read with it, if anyone's interested, we've talked about these a fair bit. I saw one of the really big YouTube channels get something completely wrong recently. Where's the origin of all of these lizard men will conquer the earth stories, etc.? What's the kind of master book? So the two books that are kind of very influential on Dune. Pardon me. Butler's Erewhon. The other one is Edward Bulwer-Lytton's Vril, or The Coming Race. Both books were published a year apart. Both books were published anonymously. And the authors had to admit who published them. Pardon me. Because, simply put, word got out, and I think that the general public thought that both books were written by the same author, and they weren't. So it kind of caused both authors to kind of come out, if you like. Bulwer-Lytton's a Tory MP that coined the phrase "the pen is mightier than the sword," and the Vril are the underground lizard people with the little thing here, and they also have this ubiquitous drug called, well, that's what Vril is. They're the Vril, yeah. Pardon me, that's where we get the word Bovril from. And the Vril is the substance that's most like melange in literature. It's a ubiquitous drug. It can be used as a weapon. It's a drug. It's an energy source. It's a weapon, fuel, etc., etc. All theories have a mixed species. All theories need attacking. Yes, and they do, and at the same time, therefore, they need defending. It's kind of, whenever you do your PhD, the last thing that you do is what's called a viva voce. It's a vocal defense of your work, and you have to kind of know it backwards. You go in there, and they'll literally ask you anything in this 400-page document. And you have to be able to go, well, you'll see I've covered that on page 43, footnote 16, where I say blah. So that's what when you're finishing a PhD, the last stage is a full-on attack, if you like, by experts and supervisors and external supervisors, this kind of thing, and your job is to defend the hell out of it. And arguably, I've been doing that for 15 years now here. It's possibly the largest defense of a PhD ever. But I explain things, that's the part of it. But if anyone's not familiar with this, it's all on my channel, folks, and go check it out, and hopefully you'll find it interesting. But yes, indeed, and the theory of evolution is pretty much there. But yeah, it's a much more complicated story than a lot of people think. We tend to talk. The general perception public has is Darwin, his theory of evolution, suddenly appeared. No one had ever talked about this, and it's all nonsense. It's a heavily discussed topic in Victorian Britain in the 19th century, long before Darwin's works on the scene. I was saying, I have a mixed speech. True enough. Our person, nice. I'll check out those videos. Excellent. Our Parker said, I've heard of The Coming Race, never read it though. It's a great book too. My favorite line in it is that you're descended from a twat. A twat's a Victorian word for a tadpole. Yeah, here, give me a wee quick second, folks. Let me see. Possibly within easy reach. There's Errol anyway. There we are. Yeah. There's deserts on the march. Oh, well, not worry about that just right now. That's the two there. And if you watch my videos, you'll see that it really is looking at. We really look at the influence of these books on Dune. Sorry, this one much more so than the other. There we go. Edward Bulwer Lytton is The Coming Race. That's a lovely wee book. Not too thick. Won't take you long to read. Very much, kind of in the mode of, how would you put it, subterranean journey, if you like. Journey to the center of the earth, that kind of thing. And the guy goes underground, discovers the Vril-Ya Society. So it's very much, the two books are very similar. Erewhon's other name by Samuel Butler is Over the Range. Again, this guy goes through a mountain range, meets this strange society, and by being among them, we learn about them, etc., etc. So the difference is what you've got here is in a funny way an attack against Darwin in certain parts of it. But what you have is a book that has a Darwinian attitude to evolution, combined with now this one has got a Lamarckian attitude. The Vril-Ya's little gland that they have upon their hand, that there's this drug and all of this, is a product of soft inheritance. So these two books are products of the discussion of evolution in Victorian times. Well, actually, Victorian Britain, if you like, to a degree. Call it 19th century, if you like. And they actually want the two of them together within a year of each other, both anonymous, and they're presenting books that they're science fiction books that contain ideas, one on the Darwinian theories and one on the Lamarckian theories, or soft inheritance. So they're absolutely worth reading together. And if you want, I firmly believe that the main inspiration for melange is Vril, because it's the only drug I know like it in literature that is so ubiquitous. I'm sure we've got a few modern ones that have turned up now. But yeah, they're really interesting, fascinating books. It's a satire, so there's a level of humor. This one's much more in the mode of something like Jules Verne's Journey to the Center of the Earth. If you like that, you'd like this. Very similar book. But that's the idea. And once you meet the Vril, they're pretty interesting. But that's your lizard people, and where you get the video that was on YouTube that got it all wrong. Was talking about sort of what's the kind of archetype for all this stuff of these lizard people come to take over the earth, all this kind of thing. It's this book here, and it's to do with some strange coincidences in history. Like as much as you've heard of the Thule Society and cult of the Black Sun and things like this, there's the Vril Society, is the lizard people society that you're meant to be talking about. And there's pictures. If you look into it, you'll see photographs of like is that these horsemen making their lances spell out VRIL, for example. Now, that's actually the 5th Royal Irish Lancers, but it was part of the whole Vril thing, if you like. So its other name is Vril, or the Coming Race. And again, it's where you get the word Bovril from. But yeah, it's a great book. And let's see, how many pages is this? It's a novella. Won't take you long to read. Erewhon's a wee bit much more time to read. It's a great book, very, very funny, I think. And if you don't have a bother putting yourself in different times, that kind of thing, they're very enjoyable, I think, but really, really influential. Cracking stuff. Our Parkinson, very influential, absolutely. And yeah, I think Butler's a huge figure in the Victorian era, if you like. He's the great British iconoclast. He's written some interesting stuff. He wrote The Way of All Flesh, I think, is his great iconoclastic British novel. It was published a year after he died, I think, in 1903. I think he must have died in 1902, I think. What else? But he's got some Homeric stuff, if you like. He had a theory that Homer was a woman. There's an author who's come up with this recently, by the way, in published books. Again, it's actually a theory that Samuel Butler is really famous for. So it's nothing new. If you think about when these books were written, again, sort of pastoral utopian sin, doesn't matter. If you read these ideas in this, you will see them all in Dune. And this is the book. As much as I once said Herbert's a bit of a hypocrite when he talks about how George Lucas stole his ideas, but he stole the hell out of this. And we've talked about it. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but he's a hypocrite for saying that because he pilfered this book. It's because there's such way out there ideas. They're not Frank's, unfortunately. And Frank's is guilty of that level of pilfering, if you like, that George Lucas was for Star Wars. But as we said, was it good? Bad writers borrow, good writers steal, and what you create is something unique. But a lot of the ideas in Dune are not Frank Herbert's. Although he'll do, and yes, what's the other one? All writers are liars. And I love Frank. Don't get me wrong, but you got to take him with a wee bit with a pinch of salt now and then. Is there a possible connection to the Soma of the Rig Vega and Spice Melange? Yes, Soma indeed is another one. Yeah, it says Atreides there. Sorry, thank you, Atreides. Soma is a science fiction drug as well, isn't it? It's Soma is the drug of, isn't it? Oh God, here, hang on. Memory. Soma. I was going to do an episode on sci-fi drugs. Soma is the drug from is it Brave New World? Let me have a look. I know that's where the Brave New World gets its name from. But yeah, it's another one of our sci-fi drugs, isn't it? Let me just see. Is it? I think it is. Soma. There we go. Yeah, it's Soma. Is a fictional drug in Aldous Huxley's dystopian novel. And yes, there you go. Inspired by cultural elements around the book, Brave New World Revisited, Huxley states that he based Soma not on the Greek word, but on the Vedic nectar of the gods, a liquid necessary for certain rituals and identified in 1969 to have been created from the pressed juice from the fly agaric hallucinogenic mushroom. Numerous hymns and references to the real-life Soma exist in Rig Veda, where it is worshipped as a deity, second only to Indra in power. Similar to the actual Soma Tigers, the fictional Soma are emotionally strengthened but face considerable danger. Let's have a look at it. Soma drink in Vedic tradition. Importance among the early Vedic Indo-Aryans. The Rig Veda mentions it, particularly in the Soma Mandala. Gita mentions the drink in chapter 9 is equivalent to the Iranian Hauma. Okay, we're getting into the mythological drugs here. Let me just have a wee quick look. Its effects. Literally, Soma literally means distill, extract, sprinkle in Sanskrit. Vestium cognate is Homa. I'll have to look into that. I'll probably end up looking into this actually whenever I do that sci-fi drug episode. And the Ved is the same word soma is used for drink, the plant, and its deity. Ah, yeah. Let me see. Someone is completely dedicated to soma and is focused on the moment in the ritual when the soma is pressed, strained, mixed with water and milk, and poured into containers. Actions are described as a representation of a variety of things, including a king conquering territory, the sun's journey through the cosmos, or a bull running to mate with cows, represented by the milk. The most important myth about Soma is about his theft. In it, Soma was originally held captive in a citadel in heaven by the archer Chrysannu. A falcon stole Soma, successfully escaping Chrysannu, and delivered Soma to Manu, the first sacrificer. Additionally, Soma is associated with the moon in the late Rig Veda and the Middle Vedic period. Surya, the daughter of the sun, is sometimes stated to be the wife of Soma. That's interesting. Pardon me. We have drunk the Soma, we have become immortal, we have gone to the light, we have found the gods. What can hostility do to us now, and what the malice of a mortal, the immortal one? In the Vedas, Soma is both a plant and a god. That's I'd love to keep reading that. That's fascinating. Yeah, food of the gods type stuff. Yes, indeed. Brave New World, yes, and it was eventually the name of a real drug too. Yeah, that well, sure, we've got spice now. It's pretty dangerous stuff as well. It happens, doesn't it? But yeah, certainly with Philip K. Dick, there's a lot of sci-fi drugs out there. I was going to, yeah, as I said, I'll have a wee announcement maybe at the end of the program here. I'm going to start doing a few more. Oh, in fact, that's going to be a part of it actually. Excuse me, folks, I need to blow my nose again. I do apologise. I've got a sniffle. There we go. In fact, excuse me, folks, I'm going to be right back because I've run out of fluid. So I'm just going to quickly refresh my drink and I'll be right with you. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. Yeah, there's a lot of great sci-fi drugs out there. Melange is probably the daddy of them all, I think. But it's definitely got its origins in Vril. Yeah, if you look into the history of, is it Unilever own the product Bovril, and if you look at where Bovril get their name from, that's quite interesting. There's to be this high energy food for use in the Balkan, Crimean War, that kind of thing. And that's what the history of Bovril is. And it comes to the idea that the name is, it's the Latin word for cow and energy, if you like, beef energy. Boss, isn't it? Where were we, folks? Right, so this is the reference to the priestess of Jowf, captured in Assyria by Sennacherib. Now, I'm sure probably a lot of you have heard of Sennacherib. And he's one of a couple of geezers from this part of the world that you probably hear of in the Bible. Sennacherib is an Assyrian king. He was born in 745, around 745 BC, and his reign of the Neo-Assyrian Empire would have been from 705 BC to 681 BC, when he was assassinated by two of his sons. He wasn't replaced by either of those sons. One of his other sons killed them, sorted them out, and then became the next king, if you like. So I was going to have a bit of a Father Ted joke here. I don't know if anybody will get it or not. So here we go. The Neo-Assyrian Empire was the fourth of the Assyrian empires out of five, and in my opinion, the best of the Assyrian empires. I'm sorry about that. You'll either get that or you won't. That's a wee Father Ted joke. Yes, indeed. So what's this all about? Well, let's just explain these. So this is Sennacherib. You will find him in the Old Testament. He's famous for all sorts of things. And in fact, we know quite a lot about him. So just to explain, I suppose, Syria. What is Assyria before we get into the Neo-Assyrians? Simply put, there's a number of the empires change as they go down, if you like, through time. Who are the Assyrians? They're basically a Mesopotamian city-state civilization, for want of a better word. They're, for want of a better term, and simply put, the sort of a region of modern-day Iraq, if you like. The civilization around the cities would be Nimrod and Nineveh would be the most famous ones, I suppose. But its original capital, its first capital was Assur, built around 2600 BC. Different capitals for the Assyrian civilization, if you like, have included Nimrod, Nineveh, Haran, Assur, Kar, Tukutli, Ninurta, and Dar Shuriken. So the Assyrian Empire, pretty much, the Neo-Assyrian Empire, it dates roughly, I've got off Wikipedia, from 911 to 609 BC. Let's just get, Sennacherib's quite famous. Basically, if you check him out on Wikipedia, you'll see there's an awful lot of stuff about him. Some of it's contradictory. He would now see. I'll just run through some of the notes I have here quickly. His name means sin has replaced the brothers, as in the goddess sin. Here, hang on. Am I having a brain fart? Bear with me a wee second, folks. Sorry, bear with me a second. I'm trying to. She's female, isn't it? Female. Hang on. There you go, representing them in. Oh, mate, that's what I wanted to check. I didn't want to be talking nonsense. Might be totally wrong there. Let me see. I've got it. No, there you go. I just wanted to check that I wasn't talking nonsense. I was talking nonsense. Sorry, he. The god sin has replaced the brothers, is what his name means. I suppose again there's meaning there. Is the son of Sargon II, part of the Sargonid dynasty of the Neo-Assyrian Empire, and he was eventually assassinated in Nineveh on the 20th of October 681 BC by his sons Arda Malusa and Nabu Shar Assur, one of the temples. And ironically, there's some debate about this, if I can understand this correctly, but it was possibly one of Sin's temples that he was murdered in. His titles are, you like this, King of Assyria, King of Babylon, King of the four corners of the world, and King of the universe. So I've just put here, see Wikipedia and see the Bible for a lot more on Sennacherib. Let's just bring him up. I was just having a wee nosy. I don't know if anybody is too familiar with him. He's one of a couple of games. The other one that would be sort of really famous from the Bible for me is probably about, I don't know, 100 years later, and that would be Nebuchadnezzar, and he's kind of king of Neo-Babylonians, I suppose. Would that be the case? Let me see. Sennacherib in popular memory. There's Lord Byron. Here we go. Sennacherib's Levantine campaign is a significant event in the Bible, being brought up and discussed in many places, notably 2 Kings 18:13 to 19:37, 26, and 2 Chronicles 32, 1 to 23. A vast majority of the biblical accounts of King Hezekiah's reign in 2 Kings is dedicated to Sennacherib's campaign, cementing it as the most important event of Sennacherib's time. In Chronicles, Sennacherib's failure and Hezekiah's success is emphasized. The Assyrian campaign, described as an act of aggression rather than response to Hezekiah's rebellious activities, is seen as doomed to fail from the start. According to the narrative, no enemy, not even the powerful king of Assyria, would have been able to triumph over Hezekiah, as the Judean king had God on his side. The conflict is presented as something akin to a holy war, God's war against the pagan Sennacherib. So this whole thing with Hezekiah at Jerusalem, put it this way, it's one of those stories that you'll find very, very different accounts of. Pardon me, and the account in the Bible is very, very different than what the Assyrians say, for example. Which is it's a huge subject to read around, and it's fascinating, and he's fascinating. And the other thing, I don't know if you'd like to hear it or not. Let me see. In terms of popular, let's go me Lord Byron out. It's interesting. I was having a wee flick through just how this is organized. Byron's occasional pieces here. But what's it called within they're collected in this as is it Hebrew melodies, and the one immediately before it here is and this is I've got these. I have a bunch of these. I love these. This is the Wordsworth Poetry Libraries. They're complete works. Starting to possibly regret it in old age. Look at the tiny writing. But that's what you get with complete works, isn't it? Yeah, it's got the right by the rivers of Babylon. We sat down and wept immediately prior to this. By Byron, and oddly enough, the one before that's on the day of the destruction of Jerusalem by Titus. It's just jumping around in history, but the destruction of Sennacherib. If anybody's not familiar with it, I always love an excuse to get a poem read here. So I'll quickly get some fluids and I'll quickly read it to you. The Assyrian came down like the wolf in the fold, and his cohorts were gleaming in purple and gold, and the sheen of their spears was like stars in the sea when the blue wave rolls nightly on deep Galilee. Like the leaves of the forest when summer is green, that host with their banners at sunset were seen. Like the leaves of the forest when autumn hath blown, the host on the morrow lay withered and strown. For the angel of death spread his wings on the blast, and breathed in the face of the foe as he passed. And the eyes of the sleepers were deadly and still and chill, and their hearts but once heaved and forever grew still. And there lay the steed with his nostril all wide, but through it there rolled not the breath of his pride, and the foam of his gait gasping lay white on the turf, as cold as the spray of the rock-beating surf. Pardon me. And there lay the rider distorted and pale, with the dew on his brow and the rust on his mail. And the tents were all silent, the banners alone, the lances unlifted, the trumpet unblown. And the widows of Ashur are loud in their wail, and the idols are broken, the temple of Baal. And the might of the Gentile unsmoked by the sword hath melted like snow in the glance of the Lord. And there you go. It's a very famous poem, The Destruction of Sennacherib by Lord Byron. Sorry, I'm a wee bit wheezy today, folks. I suppose the point I was making is when I was looking into this, it took me all over the place. But first of all, Sennacherib, not much of a problem. He's no bother. What's he got to do with this priestess of Jowf? And what's this got to do with Ghanima? Jowf, sorry. So, very quickly, that's who Assyria was. That's who Sennacherib was. Jowf is modern day Al-Jawf. It's spelled Jawf, and is a province of Saudi Arabia. It's in the very north center of the Arabian Peninsula and borders Jordan to the west. Pardon me. It was a strategic area on the incense road, and in Assyrian times, what this was called was the Kingdom of Kedar. Spelt, here we go. I'll just type this in for you. Boom, there we go, the Kingdom of Kedar. This is to do with our priestess there. In the Assyrian times, is the Kingdom of Kedar. Its capital was at Dumat al-Jandal, which the Assyrians, I believe, called Andumatu. Pardon me, and it was attacked by Sennacherib circa 690 BC. Its queen was Tel-Hunu, who was defeated by Sennacherib. Her forces fled to Dumat al-Jarda, sorry, I need to cross that. It's Dumat al-Jarda. She was then captured there with, now this is a little bit interesting, and we might have to look at this a wee bit more. captured there with Princess Tabr and taken to Nineveh as a hostage in the year 688 BC. Now, she's quite interesting. Now, Queen Teal Huna, let me type in her name for you, and you can check this out on Wikipedia. Especially if you look at the Kingdom of Kadar on Wikipedia, you'll find out all about her there. And this is the priestess that we're talking about, by the way. Who knew, isn't it? It is. There we go. There we go. This is the priestess of Jowf that Herbert's referring to. That's her name. Her dates are circa around 690, probably to let me see, what dates do I have for her here? I've got a lot of stuff on her. 690 to around 676 BC. She's the fourth of six notable nomadic sort of Arabic queens, if you like, that are mentioned in Assyrian documents, the first five of which were rulers. Their names are Zabibi, Samsi, Yati, who was her predecessor, T.L. Huna, Tabua, which is her daughter, and I have another name for Adia, which I couldn't find anything on. Now, this is a queen, you're saying, not a priestess. Oh, no, don't make that. As soon as I heard priestess, I kind of almost immediately went, this is a queen. And that's what I started looking for. And I kind of used Semiramis, the stuff that so they had been telling me about. I knew where she was. And I knew it wasn't her, but I used her as a benchmark to go looking around, if you like. So, Teal Huna is also what's known as an Apkaluta, which is a word of Sumerian origin. Is a translation of the feminine version of Apkalu, which is a wise man, a sage, an expert. Pardon me. Go on, I could do with some honey. So therefore, that title means a wise woman, a wise one, a sage, an expert. There's also another term, rather interesting, which is called Apkalu Samni, which means divination by the use of oil, an expert who's in oil divination. But in other words, a priestess. Pardon me. So Teal Huna was a priestess of Ishtar. Now, her people, the Assyrians say that her people worshipped a goddess called Atur-Samin, which is the local name, the Kedarite name for Ishtar. Now, the interesting thing about her is, of course, she's a queen. Hey there, big lad. Oh, sorry, I'm getting barked at. You'll have to excuse me in a wee second. You have to let her ladyship out here. This is essentially a warrior queen, high priestess of Ishtar, if you like to want to give her titles properly, really. Fascinating individual for the ancient world. She rules with a consort king husband, if you like, whose name is Hazael. Pardon me. And in relation to Ghanima and Leto, we need to think of Ghanima as T.L. Huna here and Leto as Hazael, I think. And I'll explain why. So basically, they fought Sennacherib's army and lost. She was captured and made hostage, along with her daughter Tabua, and the idols of her temple were also taken. He managed to run away, basically, and escape. So he fled and escaped. My understanding is Sennacherib also took camels, spices, and jewels from their temple, etc., from Dumat al-Jandal. So she was taken as a hostage by Sennacherib to Nineveh in the year 688 BC. And there she remained for some time. And Sennacherib actually died 7 years later, I believe, in 681 BC. Now, at that point, as far as I know, Hazael, her partner, the king, so the king and queen of this country, bent the knee to Sennacherib's successor, which was Esarhaddon. Now, his dates are 681 BC to 669 BC, though he was born in circa around 713 BC. Now, this is the interesting thing, by the way, just from what I got from this. Now, and I haven't gone super nuts on exploring this because I'd get lost in it. So It looks like they were ultimately reunited, I think, because if we look at those dates, if he came and bent the knee to the successor post 681, she's still alive till 676 BC. Remember, our years are going down the way towards zero, if you like. So there's a suggestion that the point is that she was captured and taken hostage by the person, the ruling individual of the empire, if you like. So, in some senses, what this is relating to is that, and that's the memories that would have been as a captive, a spoil of war, and a hostage, separated from their partner, their other half, and ultimately, I suppose, reunited. Now, the interesting thing about this, and I'm not too sure, just to finish off about these folks, is that her hubby Hazael there were understood. What I understand is Esarhaddon basically, I think, set them free. I'm not too sure what happened to T.L. Hunu at this point, but she was succeeded by her daughter Tabu, who was also a captive here, also a hostage. But I managed to see that it seems that Esarhaddon had Hazael rule later the kingdom of Kadar. He ruled as a consort husband with Tabua, who is T.L. Hunu's daughter. I just put here that the dates indicate that they could have reunited, etc. There's also a suggestion here, and I don't know how much of it is true, that Tabua is Sennacherib's daughter with T.L. Hunu. The only other thing that kind of gives me a bit of a problem with that, well, it's not a problem, but it's that kind of thing, is that it would seem, therefore, if Sennacherib wasn't his daughter, if Tabua is not Sennacherib's daughter, then there's a strong possibility that she's the child of both T.L. Hunu and Hazael, which would mean that she ends up, the suggestion is that there's an incestuous marriage there, possibly, or an incestuous union. So what's all that about? Like Ghanima, T.L. Hunu is a spoil of war. She will be a hostage to an empire, a regent, emperor, and all but name. And in the next chapter, and just to drop my evidence for this, by the way, it's got nothing to do with the attack. It's preparing herself for what's ahead. The attack comes from her Fremen viciousness. In the next chapter, we will find out that Ghanima is in custody of her aunt and reputedly a hostage. And it's to do with hostage taking and her understanding where this is going. And by understanding the memories of T.L. Hunu, she understands exactly what is ahead of her and what's required of her. Does that make sense? So I hope that explains it to you folks. It's a very little thing that's just dropped in here. And it's such an obscure reference, isn't it? As I said, I think Sennacherib's pretty well known in the world. I think like some Nebuchadnezzar as well, that kind of thing. Different lot, but I think he was quite well known. But the rest of it, I think, is pretty obscure. And again, it makes us wonder where Frank's been doing his research, etc., etc. But I just have to say, by the gods, I had fun tracking this stuff down. It was fascinating. So just to drop back into that, folks, that was an awful lot to explain to you. Just prior to going into all that nonsense. Where are we? And it's an interesting thing. It said, through a strange silent barrier in her mind, found a priestess of Jowf, captured in Assyria by Sennacherib. The memories of that priestess told Ghanima what would have to be done here. Palam Basha and his woman, they were mere children, wayward and dangerous. They knew nothing of Jowf, knew not even the name of the planet where Sennacherib and the priestess had faded into dust. The thing which was about to happen to the pair of conspirators, if it were explained to them, could only be explained to them, if it could only be explained to them in terms of beginning here. I did that again, didn't I? Yeah. There we go. Oh dear. If you like, Cynthia saying, if you like historical videos, the YouTube channel Fall of Civilizations by historian Paul Cooper has a good 3 hour representation of the rise and fall of the Assyrian Empire. Fantastic. Scribble that down. Yeah. As I said, I've been doing reading. I've bound in order to find this. I actually got the information eventually by investigating the kingdom of Kedar. That's what led me to it. I found these 6 Arabian queens, and that fortunately one of them was my candidate, and I figured that this fitted perfectly in terms of we've had 2 people separated. One has fled, one's going to become a hostage, and ultimately, hopefully, that they'll be reunited. I can't say that happened for certain here with the situation, but certainly Tabua is T.L. Huna. So the point was ultimately that they were released from being kept as hostage. Hostage taking is a very interesting thing in the ancient world. It takes some different forms, if you like. Hostages were generally well looked after. It depends. I suppose that we look at was it what we call the captivity? I suppose a dispersal of the Jewish people with Babylon. Obviously, oddly enough, what Byron's referring to there, and that's in part a kind of dispersal, kind of a hostage taking kind of thing. I'd even argue almost Roman education's kind of a wee bit of hostage taking in a simple way. Like, families would kind of educate each other's sons, kind of adopt them and educate them and that kind of thing. You didn't. It was an interesting thing. It was a way of creating alliances and making sure that there's no violence against people, if you like. You get the idea probably if you've seen Game of Thrones. Hostage taking is a big part of that in the fantasy world. There, we've got famous, hostage taking within Irish mythology as well. Very, very famous character in Irish mythology. Mythology, is he real? Hang on, I don't want to get him mixed up. Is it Niall of the 9 hostages? Is that what he's called? Let me look him up quickly. I'm trying to remember. I haven't read up on the Irish myths in years. Oh, there he is. He's an Irish High King. Niall the Gaelic. Niall, Old Irish having 9 hostages, obviously. There you go. Yeah, no, not too far off. He's a legendary semi-historical Irish king. He was the ancestor of the O'Neill dynasties that dominated Ireland from the 6th to the 10th centuries. Historical Irish analytic and chronicle sources place his reign in the late 4th and early 5th centuries, although modern scholars date him about half a century later. So there's that's part of his name, if you like. But hostage taking is an ancient thing, and it's not. I suppose certainly not what modern hostage taking is about at all. So that, I think, is our reference. We're going to get another wee mention of it. And it suggests almost about what's being done here now, as in Ghanima about to take these people out. But there is nothing that's suggestive of that within the relationship between this historical story, if you like. Pardon me. But I think in terms of the hostage taking, the being captured, all of that is, as I said, it's right on the next page once we get to the end of this chapter, and I think that's the connection that it's referring to. And she's steeling herself for what's ahead, but first she's got to get through to these 2, and then she is going to be captured, but it's going to be under her terms, I think. Oh yeah, sorry, that's what I was doing. I was going to write that down. Fall of civilizations. It's Paul Cooper. Yeah. Oh, there's a very, very good. There's some great lectures on that. There's one about the Bronze Age collapse. I can't remember the chap's name, but it's kind of an argument for the date and stuff like that. There's some fascinating ones on there. But yeah, I don't know too much about the Assyrians and stuff like that. I tend to probably know about going back further about the city-state cultures and stuff. I know a little bit about Uruk and Ur and places like that. But yeah, it was fun, interesting, fascinating, looking at the things that survive from these empires that give us so much information, their artifacts, and inscriptions. Great stuff. You could just disappear down a rabbit hole with that stuff, couldn't you? Paul Cooper. Trudy says, second that recommendation. It's excellent. History of Sci has some wonderful work on the history of Mesopotamia too. Thank you. No, I haven't heard. I don't know. I'm a bit wary around some of the history channels, if you like. There's a lot of, particularly within when we start going into this part of the world and head a little bit further back, starting to get a lot of UFO stuff, which I just kind of have to go, whoa, you know. History of Sci. Thank you. Mesopotamia. Oh, you gotta love the Mesopotamians. Meso between Potomac River, the folks between the rivers. Caesar had some issues with figuring out how to deal with Cleopatra's sister, Arsinoe. Excuse me. He had to flip-flop a couple of times before letting her take her vows in a Roman temple. The ones that give reference in their footnotes give me hope. Absolutely. Well, folks, if you do check out my PhD videos, what you'll see is it literally is a complete PhD put up there. Images have been added to it, but there are little green numbers that appear down here in the corner with any single reference, or the footnotes and quotes are all presented for. And at the end of every episode, then those notes correspond to all of your references. And then the very, very, very last episode, there's a dump, but I'm just short of 600 footnotes and references in it. So you can watch it at your leisure. You don't have to take any of that stuff in, but if you want, everything is there for you. Anybody who wants to check it out, you know. But yeah, it's good to reference your work, check your sources, you know. And if you're not sure something's not true, say so. You know, but that was fascinating. So just finding out a little bit about Sennacherib there, Assyria, the Neo-Assyrian Empire, Jowf being modern day Al Jowf. Herbert's changed the letters. He's disguising, and he's dropping she's a priestess of Jowf. And she's probably this high priestess, by the way. She's a very, very important individual, and this is kind of arguably the ruling empire, you know, in and around this region at the time. She's a very powerful figure. I think it's being held hostage as Sennacherib's tidying up the gaff and doing things to Nineveh, you know. It couldn't have been too uncomfortable for her. But at the same time, her life's been uprooted, separated from her partner, and as I said, ultimately she's released, but it's capture and hostage taking. I think that's the main thing to get from this, you know. Pardon me. Right, folks, let's push on. There's not much more to go, but I hope that explained things for you. And I'm absolutely certain, by the way, the individual that we're referring to here, the priestess of Jowf, is T.L. Hunu. That's her name. Fascinating. Really powerful women in the ancient world. We were looking at Semiramis in relation to, something suggested in relation to Alia, because again, powerful regents. We get these ladies mentioned. So I've been from Byron to to Herodotus to the Bible. We've been all over the place to get that information, and it was nice to get it confirmed as well. But there you go. There's a lot of people out there who've been trying to figure out who's the priestess of Jowf, so it's not a secret anymore. There you go. There you go. I enjoyed that. So rolling, here we go. It's time to kick ass, isn't it? This is what I love. So we just finished with, before we hit all those notes, pardon me, the thing which was about to happen to the pair of conspirators, if it were explained to them, could only be explained to them in terms of beginning here and ending here. Here we go. So that's very okay, full on. Rolling onto her side, Ghanima freed her fremkit, slipped the sand snorkel from its bindings. She uncapped the sand snorkel, removed the long filter within it. Now she had an open tube. She selected a needle from the repair pack, unsheathed her crysknife, and inserted the needle into the poison hollow. At the knife's tip, that place where once a sandworm's nerve had fitted. A little bit of sandworm dental anatomy there. Her injured arm made the work difficult. She moved carefully and slowly, handling the poison needle with caution, while she took a wad of spice fibre from its chamber in the kit. The needle's shank fitted tighting. I think that's a problem there. I've got some error there. In the needle's shank fitted tighting into the fiber wad, forming a missile which went tight into the tube of the sand snorkel. I'm not sure what's wrong with it. I think it should be tightly. The needle's shank fitted tightly, but I have tighting. Tightly, thank you. Yeah, sometimes it's kind of, you think it's pretty obvious what it is, but you want someone to confirm it for you. Tightly, that's appalling. Again, someone's how has it happened? I don't know, but I don't know. It's sometimes there's needles shank fitted tightening. Tightly, yeah. You see, sometimes that's it. These mistakes. Dun, 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 dun. They're probably not Franks at all. In fact, I'm about 80% sure that, well, I'd say about 80% of the mistakes at least aren't anything to do with Frank Herbert. Tightly, thank you. That reads a lot easier, doesn't it? I'll just read that again. She took a wad of spice fibre from the chamber in the kit. The needle's shank fitted tightly into the fibre wad, forming a missile which went tightly into the tube of the sand snorkel. 23. We got another tightly there. Double tightlies, yeah. No. Let me just check that too. Yeah, those that's not great writing there. There's the two tightlies, I think, jar a wee bit. I would have found another word, yeah, tightly times two. Into the fibre. My text has the needle shank fitted tightly into the fibre wad. Yeah, mine has tighting. Oh dear, oh dear. I know occasionally I've gotten into the habit actually of just sometimes, because it's just like we can do this. Let me see if we can get the book close enough for you and I'll get it to focus. There you go. Tighting. Just in case you all think I've gone bonkers or something. Have you got two tightly? Tightly times two. Very good. Two tightly. Yes, indeed. Two times tightly. It's you can use a word again, but it jars a bit, doesn't it? Yeah, I just wrote a mistake. Tightly. Tightly. But it's good to have these things confirmed, isn't it? I suppose. But this is Ghanima being quite badass. This is kind of her A-team moment, isn't it? She's stripping apart the sand snorkel and making a deadly weapon from it. Weapon ammunition. It's a real, sorry, what I would call an A-team moment. Holding the weapon flat, Ghanima wormed her way closer to the light, moving slowly to cause minimal disturbance in the Alpha. I love that. I thought that was a great use of the word wormed. It's just a great wormed her way closer to the light. As she moved, she studied the insects around the light. Yes, there were Payumi flies in that fluttering mob. They were notorious biters of human flesh. The poison dart might go unnoticed, swatted aside as a biting fly. A decision remained. Which one of those two to take, the man or the woman? I'm sorry, folks, I'm getting growled at immediately behind me here. I'm going to have to let her ladyship out to the loo. We're nearly finished. I'll be right back in a wee second. I'll run to the loo myself as well. Excuse me one wee moment. If I can find there we go, mouse. There we go. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. We are a doghouse after all. He's just looking for belly rubs, actually. But there we go. Sorry, let's just get. We're almost there to the end. Actually, apologies for that, but let's just push on. But yeah, she's basically constructed a weapon, a blowpipe, a dart, if you like, out of her sand snorkel and various bits of kit from the frame kit, and dipped it in the poison that they coated the weapons with, as opposed to deal with the Laza Tigers. So pretty nasty stuff. We spread that. Yeah, which one to take? Who? And this is the man or the woman. I'm kind of wondering what she means by that. Which one to take, as in to take alive or to take out? I think. Muriz. The name came unbidden to Ghanima's mind. That was the woman's name. It recalled things said about her. She was one of those who fluttered around Palambasha as the insects fluttered around the light. She was easily swayed, a weak one. Just before I went any further, by the way, what was it? The pume flies. Pume, the way it's spelled there, I think. That's an odd thing, I thought. And I kind of looked it up, and I sort of saw people doing stuff with like fishing flies and stuff. But pume comes from the Latin word for feathers. Yet there were feathered flies in the fluttering mob, if you like, is a well way of putting it, I think. And that's interesting. I thought that trying to create like a feathered dart from the spice fiber, if you like, and these bugs happen to be feathered. That's what I got from that. There's not actually a species, pardon me, no, I know of, called pume flies. By the gods. Right, there we go. Now, let's see which one to take, the man or the woman. Muriz is possibly a Latin name. I've got a couple of things. Could be a version of Muris, which is, I think it means he who leaves inheritance, but that Muris would be a wall. That's spelled Murus, but I think it's from possibly the genitive singular of the word mus, which is mouse. Not too sure on that one. We're going to have another character called Muriz, who's a man, who's a male. We have a female Muriz here for Ghanima, and Leto the second later is going to have to deal with a male character with the same surname. Same name. Apologies. Which is interesting. Oh, there's Cynthia's ahead of us. So they say in upcoming chapters, Leto will encounter him as a young man, this time at Jakuru. Yeah, that's an interesting thing, isn't it? Both twins, and that there's an inversion in gender with the two Murizes. Here we have a female for female, and we'll have a male for the male. I wonder what that's about. I'm looking forward to getting further into that. Yeah, the insects. So I just jumped back to the PMA flies there because I'd forgotten. But so here's Ghanima's thoughts. Very well. Palambasha had chosen the wrong companion for this night. In other words, that she's going to take Muriz alive and kill Palambasha. If Palambasha had been the least dangerous of the two, I think that's the way Ghanima's thinking is here. She's going to kill the more dangerous of the two individuals and take captive and argue possibly hostage, which is another thing. Muriz. So Ghanima put the tube to her mouth, and with the memory of the priestess of Jowf clearly in her awareness, she sighted carefully, expelled her breath in one strong surge. Palambasha batted at its cheek, drew away a hand with a speck of blood on it. The needle was nowhere to be seen, flicked away by the motion of his own hand. The woman said something soothing, and Palambasha laughed. As he laughed, his legs began to give away beneath him. He sagged against the woman, who tried to support him. She was staggering with the dead weight when Ghanima came up beside her and pressed the point of an unsheathed crysknife against her waist. I like this bit. In a conversational tone, Ghanima said, "Make no sudden movements, Miraz. My knife is poisoned. You may let go of Palambasha now. He's dead." That's the way I would have read it. So there we go. And we have, as always, we've given him his own little skull. There we go. Palambasha killed by Ghanima, and he's a Fremen traitor. I should have written mathematician actually, which I thought was kind of interesting. Yeah, what a very obscure reference within this book. That took work to find. Pardon me. I'm wondering, whenever you get things like this within Dune, I think Frank loves doing stuff like this. I'm wondering again. This is written in a pre World Wide Web age. Would the average reader, prior to what the World Wide Web has become, be able to find this kind of information? I think you would probably have to have access to a very, very good library, a big public library or something like that. Certainly in this country, it would be a city-sized library that you would need to go. You would probably need to get someone to find journals, or you probably need a librarian to help you find this stuff. More than likely, some of it's a lot of it. It's very, very interesting, and it actually completely relates to the characters, to the character of Ghanima in a couple of ways there, I think. But simply, my evidence kind of ran. I was wondering, well, how can I run? But immediately on the next page, my page would be 211. We're going to have Ghanima, the surviving sister, was in the custody of her aunt, unreportedly a hostage. And we go from that story of Palambasha, who was a hostage, to her being one. I think it's absolutely the right connection. And it kind of gives it gives you an interesting sort of run with the female other memory that Ghanima has, all the way down to a very, very interesting individual from history in this case. So as much as often we get myths and stuff like that, what we have here is a very, very, it's as to all the goings on of Sennacherib. I think that it's interesting to look at how different cultures report on stuff, even in the ancient world. There's all sorts of stories about him. I think I recall Lord Byron's poem had the piss taken out of it quite a lot. It had many sort of derogatory imitators, if you like. I think it's a good poem. But I quite like. I haven't read a lot of Byron's stuff, but I do like him. Read a few bits, but yeah, as I said, I've got a whole bunch of these things here, which are I've not got a whole bunch. I've got 5 or 6 of them. I've got Shelley, Byron, Blake, Milton, Spencer, and my good friend Jared Manley Hopkins as well. Just these big. They're the Wordsworth Poetry Library. They're huge, chunky books, and you get them for next to virtually no money at all. The only thing is the writing's a wee bit small, but it's good print. I can read it. I've got to do a bit of that, I feel like, with my reading glasses. But yeah, I love stuff like this. I've got an Edgar Allan Poe like this as well. All sorts of things. Heavily into his Greeks was old Byron. Pretty much an honorary Greek, isn't he? But there you go, folks. I hope you've enjoyed. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I'm happy as a pig rooting in its own feces when it comes to doing stuff like this, and I like the challenge of it. And as I said, interesting. I always think it funny, and a seriologist could have probably just gave us the answer in 1 second. But it's what you know and what you don't know. But it's kind of the fun of the hunt of the information, if you like, hunting down a person through the centuries, through an obscure reference to figure out who he is enormous fun. To me, anyway. And yeah, my problem is not having time to read, if you see what I mean. I've got so much to read. The wee announcement that I don't know if I was saying I've got something to let you know is that I'm hoping to start up another episode, another thing every week. I'm just going to have a natter with my wife to see what sort of day would best suit us. Just a day where she's out and about and I can get on with things like that. But what we're going to do is, before I started doing the book club, I put up a thing called Doc Sloan's A to Z of the shape of the A to Z of the shape of things to come. I think on Doc Sloan's Science Fiction Station. And that was what I had planned to do for my next year. And then kind of life happened a wee bit, and we sort of, my audience told me, would you do a book club? So I'd only got to do a couple of episodes of it in terms of videos. I did one on Tiger, Alfred Bester's Tiger, and I got one done on, let's see, A Boy and His Dog, and the Bloods Are Over series of stories by Harlan Ellison. And that was to do with a particular publishing treatment, I think. And then I ended up doing a couple of side things, a sort of brief history of science fiction. I did over 4 or 5 episodes. I did a wee thing on definitions of science fiction. And we did a wee thing on the Pelophids and Dune, if you like, the history of the Pelophid line and what's that got to do with Dune. Anyway, the point was that I had planned to do this A to Z, and I had planned to make proper videos for all of these things. As much as I'd like to, and I think I could do, I didn't kind of want to say I was going to do this and then just not do it. And it's occurred to me that I can do it live like this, a lot easier. I might not, maybe do videos of these as side projects or something with the information I put together when I get a bit of time. But what I could do is, rather than not doing it, and I would have time to do this because I can simply just work with some of the stuff that's on about and bring in other things. So what I'm going to do basically is present you every week, hopefully very, very soon. Now I've got birthdays and things, and I'm flying off to London shortly, etc. But soonish, we're going to start dumping new content for you, as well as the book club, because we're managing it a lot better these days, as long as my sleep doesn't go too badly. So what we're going to do is Doc Sloan's A to Z of science fiction, but we're going to do it as like this. So each week, and it's not going to be too difficult for me to do. What I'm going to do is kind of trawl through, say, the letter A for the first week. We're going to try and just bring out as many hugely important, interesting, or odd little things, books, films, whatever, to do with each letter. And the whole idea was kind of to open you guys up to a bit of out there sci-fi, weird and kooky stuff that I like, stuff that I know about. All sorts of things within the A to Z. There was all sorts of divas for science fiction, drugs, etc. So we could do an episode like that. And I thought it would be nicer just to do it as much as I will get round to doing videos when I have time. I thought it would be a good interaction to have, and would open up the whole science fiction thing every week. And it would be an easy enough thing, if you see what I mean. It's not going to kill me in terms of writing notes and stuff. Each week I can pick out as many things as we can manage for each letter. I've got all sorts of reference material around us, and we can have a natter and a bit of a, I can prep a wee bit and we can have a bit of a natter about it. So I'm hoping to bring you a kind of a weekly A to Z, Sci-Fi Friday or something like Sci-Fi Ulster Friday is what we were going to call it. But the idea is that I'll probably do it as a wee, maybe just try to do it the way I had set up the Shape of Things to Come video. So there would be 5 or 6 things for each letter, and we could do 26 episodes of a kind of A to Z and see how it goes. But it would allow me to cover those topics, even just briefly, that I discussed in that video that I really wanted to share with you. So the very first episode, folks, that we'll be doing of that, we're going to start with. There's only one person that we can start with in an A to Z of science fiction, and of course, is Aaron A. Aardvark himself. And I look forward to that. And if you don't know who he is, as I said in my video, shame on you. Go look him up. But we're going to try and keep it fun. So we'll be bringing sci-fi and that kind of thing from all sorts of things. I will still be running this book club. It's something just to do a wee bit extra, possibly towards the weekend. Who knows? And if possibly in the wee hours or something. Because I kind of tend to be awake at night a lot, So there we go. Let me just check your comments there. Cynthia was saying, upcoming leader will encounter a mirror as a young man at 10. Ghanima's memory of the priestess of Jowf takes her beyond her Fremen heritage. Her self-imposed conditioning took her past all that. She is pure Terran. No, yes, very good. Well, we've got a bit of identity things with Ghanima in this chapter, don't we? Julian was saying, Cynthia, brilliantly put. Yes, indeed. And again, this is kind of her adventure as well. As much as we said once, really, at the beginning of the adventure, from the kids' point of view, they've been separated. And the interesting thing I think, absolutely, of course, the little things that people don't even remember what planet this woman and this emperor were on. Of course, it's Earth. It's the Neo-Assyrian Empire, etc. But yes, it's taken her across time and space, hasn't it? I got the sense, Cynthia, and this is what I thought was going on, that there was two halves, if you like, of almost of Alia. Sorry, not Alia. Apologies. Two halves of Ghanima in this chapter, and one of them was the pure Fremen. This gearing up to, I want a bit of, I want blood, and again the level of that, the way she sees herself as a pure Fremen, the level of disgust at these, what is it? What are they called again? I'm getting used to the term. Lace shirt Fremen, isn't it? That's it, lace shirt Fremen. And in that sense, that this is the deadly Fremen, and at the same time, she's building up a story, a narrative that she's going to have to sell, and also that she knows the consequences of going back in here, probably because Ali has gone off the rails, hasn't she? They've probably figured, they've probably had a fair idea of what's going to happen here, and that it's been able to go into, I suppose the way this memory comes in is that she is going to go walk back into a trap, really, here, deliberately. She's created a set of fake memories that have imprinted upon herself, which is quite impressive. And even to the point where Palam Basha here is just being killed, as that's blood for blood for Ghanima. And at the same time, the point where the memory comes, and I think it's the point, as you're saying, her self-imposed conditioning took her past all of that, of her Fremen heritage. Yeah. And is she pure Terran? No. Yeah, it's an interesting question. She's using this character to prepare her for what's immediately coming. And I think that's even if we got the kind, if you didn't get this backstory to that, this is why I thought it was important to explain this, that what you might have got a sense from who is this priestess of Jowf was that it was something to do with killing, that it was something to do with this instant situation where she's got to deal with Palam Basha. And it's just the way, I suppose, that where the information's dropped, but it's not. It's actually, as you say, it's to do with herself, as you put it, her self-imposed conditioning has taken her past. She's got this. The way it's it seems that it's a very quiet. What does it say? It's a strange, silent barrier in her mind, and I wonder why it's a barrier. Why find the priestess of Jowf, captured? So that's what's behind this barrier, is this woman's memories from the ancient world. Told Ghanima what have to be done here. So her life experiences are informing her as she goes forward, and ceases to be a Fremen. Has maybe at this point upon the killing, though I think there's still a little bit of Fremen killing, stabby killness about her right at the end here, But she's becoming pure Terran. It's almost that she could use this personality to help her deal with what's ahead. And I was starting to wonder about it in a sense, is this a kind of is this for Ghanima, the priestess of TL Hunu? Is this her equivalent of Leto II's harem, the one personality that helps, and I know it's not presented as the same thing here, but it's very much a singular personality that can help her understanding what's to come for her, because this person's been through that and lived it and experienced it. And I think that's the real benefit to her here, as well of other memory, but it's it's, I don't know, once you know the story, I think, and we see how things proceed for her and we understand their plan, it makes perfect sense. I think it's a great story to look at, and what an interesting, wow, and not only that, we talk about female characters within the ancient world, female individuals of real power. Um, T.L. Huna here is the fourth of a line of six Arabian queens, if you like. That my best guess is that Jowf is a pretty important place in that time and location because of things like the spice trade, the incense road, that kind of thing. It's a very very its location is geopolitically powerful, if that makes sense. And certainly when Sennacherib's, from what I can gather, Sennacherib's army, whenever they do sack Dumat al Jard, is that they grab the temple idols, but they also grab camel spices and stuff like that, jewels and all that kind of thing. But it's there's so much more to read in around that. It's a tiny little incident in the annals of the Neo-Assyrian Empire, but fascinating stuff. Really, really interesting. Atreides is saying there's an equivalent exchange of the preborns given reciprocally with other memories to overcome the chances of possession. Given reciprocal, yeah, with others memories to overcome the chances of possession, and they understand how not to be possessed, don't they, Atreides? They've figured it out. It's that part that's been progressing through the books, where the investigation kind of thing is what's the difference between them and Alia? What's Alia done that they don't do, or what should they or do or not do to avoid possession? And it's that Alia has kind of embraced the other memory, isn't it? Or was it she tried to resist it, that was it. She tried to fight it the whole time. They've kind of embraced it, haven't they? Understanding the problems with it and stuff like that. The barriers there that she has up, possibly to do from is it a general barrier for other memory or something? Because again, it says that that's the only thing I was curious about. Just within this, the memory. Her memory searched through a strange, silent barrier in her mind. I was wondering why it was a strange, silent barrier. Found a priestess of Jowf captured in Assyria by some. Is the barrier put up by the priestess, or is it just something that's been self-imposed? The memories of that priestess told Ghanima what would have to be done here. And yeah, and again, that sort of statement of Palamsha and Mura as being just mere children. There's something just to add in, by the way. God, I love this chapter. There's something outrageously dangerous about Ghanima, isn't there? Again, I'll just say it, outrageously dangerous 9-year-old we have here. She's a one-girl A-team. She's an assassin, absolute, and she's badly, badly wounded. Once again, giving us a kind of indication to this kind of not quite human Atreides, genes mixed in with the wild genes of the Fremen, and part of this long descending kind of breeding program. A fascinating character, Ghanima. She is going to join that club of characters that are Frank does certain things with, and then they're away. And it's not that she's underused. I don't think that at all. It's just that I kind of wish she was used more. In many ways, and of course she's meant to be the emperor, isn't it? According to Paul Atreides' visions, there wasn't meant to be twins. There was only meant to be the girl. And I'm starting to wonder, is that what thinking about Paul's visions of the future, was he seeing a snapshot possibly of where at that time where only Ghanima was alive, or seemed to be alive? I don't know, but Ghanima was fascinating. And in a kind of funny way, again, she. It would have been interesting if she became the God Empress, if we had that inversion. How different would things be? But yes, indeed, and it's going to be a very interesting character all the way to the end. But just yet another. I love them. That's what the biggest travesty to Denis Villeneuve's Dune is that we lose the child Alia from that entire story and who she is and what she does, and it's just an amazing character. And again, a ridiculously dangerous infant. And it's a thing I love this in stories. We've talked about characters like this. There's a few well done. If you know what I mean. Some there's other characters as well. There's some tragic ones as well. But what is it? Is it Joe Kidd? Is it Joe Kidd and Sam Slade's one of my favorite all time characters. Sam Slade, Robo Hunter, who's a very foul mouthed pilot who's gone through a kind of time thing accidentally, and he's a fully formed man in a baby's body, and he can speak, and he smokes a cigar, and dear, and often is very handy with a gun. He's a great character. But there we go, folks. A trap within a trap within a trap, a plan within a plan within a plan. Lace shirt, Fremen, deadly Ghanima, Atreides, Sennacherib and the Priestess of Jowf. And one very easily taken out Palam Basha. I mean, she's also captured Muras. And the final bit of it is the conversational tone of Ghanima is just very nonchalant. Hello, Muras, don't move. It's almost, again, you can imagine it. Again, the Children of Dune miniseries has made these characters a lot older. It's a real shame. I think they're much more interesting because of their age, and the clues in the book, the title, they're Children of Dune. That's who they are. There's an equivalent exchange of the preborns giving reciprocally with other memories to overcome the chances of possession. Yeah. The next chapter is going to be a big one, folks, actually, for me. It's 11 pages, so that's going to take us a bit. I'm at 210 here. Juju, my book has 426 pages. So we'll pretty much, for me, we'll be hitting the halfway mark. Next week, which is excellent. So it's going to take a wee bit of work. That's a chunky chapter. And then after that, I think we're going to have a couple of short ones again, which will run together. But yeah, there we go. So appreciate your tenacious sleuthing, Doc. Thanks. Well, thank you, Cynthia. Thanks to your husband. Because I was all super chuffed with myself. Like, I've got it. I'm so happy. And then your email came in and just look. Yes, that's him. I've got that's it. Or that's her. So, and I was delighted. So it was nice to get the confirmation. Thank you very much for taking the time and effort to do that. Yeah, and it's fun. As I said, I the way I work sometimes with stuff is I'll just find anyone I know, or some kind of event within and around whatever we're talking about, and I'll drop myself into into there and go, right, here you and what's going on around you, and we're either going forward or we're going back, and off we go. And it was a wee bit of pottering around. But as I said, I kind of, where I started with was just kind of Herodotus and Lord Byron, would you believe, and then the Bible. And off we went and just started looking at stuff and trying to find other things, and we got there. And the Assyrians and their different empires are fascinating people. I love the whole all the city-state stuff of the ancient ones. Really interesting to me, And especially if you think of the times of the New Assyrian Empire. Once we get the Bronze Age collapse going, for example, from my point of view, the Greek world is in at the times of these things going. The Greek world's in its dark ages, if you like. So we get empires like this that are operating from around just after 1000 BC down to probably about I think the last kind of hurrah of the Assyrian empires around probably a couple of 180, if you know what I mean. So the different instances of their empires probably lasting for about 1200 years there, I think, in some shape or form or another. There's all sorts of geezers pop in here and there, but you got different dynasties and stuff like that. But it's a fascinating sort of part of the world to look at. And again, we're talking about sort of pre-Islam Arabia, and again we get into the history of it. We get the myths are also excellent, but yeah, that was great fun for me. And thank you all for your patience for not minding me taking an extra week just to go and chase a reference. But I thought it was kind of important. Well, because otherwise it would have left me, if I didn't know who that was, quite frankly, that would have left me baffled. And I don't like being baffled, and I wanted to know what's going on. And I think there's a lot of, how Frank goes about his business. You can see how he's put so many years' work into these books, just in terms of words, wordsmithery. He has really just taken us all over the place, hasn't he? Um, and I think that's why one of the reasons why I'm enjoying this so much is I'm learning something no matter what I do every week here. Even if it's just a new word, it's something new, you know. Mm. And you know what they say, if you don't have new things, something inside us sleeps and seldom awakens. The sleeper must awaken, folks. That's me. I'm the sleeper and I'm trying to stay awake. But listen, thank you so much, everybody, for your help tonight. As always, sorry, I've been coming off I have a very funny sleep disorder, and I've been breaking out of it. So I was being a bit clumsy, making some silly mistakes there. I do apologize, but thank you for keeping me right. And as always, for checking your different editions of the books. But this was a well-written chapter. I really enjoyed it. There's a couple of silly wee mistakes, but nothing like, as I said, what we got previously. Nothing that was destroying meaning here or leaving us utterly confused. But he's dumped a whole bunch of little words and terms in here. Kai Macklin. What was it we had? I love the word whiffle, that he dropped whiffle in there. I thought it was a great word, just like saying it. Sennacherib, we've had Assyria, the priestess of Jowf, Assyrians mentioned, we've had Palambasha, or Palimbasha, what a great name. And again, there's just been, if you're that way inclined, and I am, there's so much to get out of this book, out of all of these books, and I think certainly Frank doesn't always explain things to you. You've got examples of a word, and here he's explained one of them to us. Thanks very much, Frank. But he doesn't explain the rest, and it's up to you. I think that's what I think he enjoyed that. And you hear him kind of talk about, it's kind of up to you to do do a bit of work, maybe do your own thing, come up with your own explanation sometimes. But certainly there's not almost hardly a single name of any kind in these books that's not loaded with meaning or referring to some myth or historical personage or something like that most often than not lends an implied meaning to the character, if you like, or place or whatever, It's great stuff. So there you go. No worries, folks. Bojack said, take care. Thank you, Bojack. All of you have a good night, folks, or good morning or good evening, or wherever you are at. Angelina said, excellent chapter night, dog. Night, everyone. Yeah. Thank you very much, folks. As always, I'll wrap up and say good night. Keep your eyes peeled. We'll be back next week for chapter 30 of Children of Dune, as usual, hopefully at 10 o'clock. That's a chunky one. I'll have to get at it right away. As I said, hopefully within a week or two, got a couple of family events and stuff, and we're off for a day, off to foggy London for a day. Probably after that, I'll be kicking off, hopefully once a week, probably on a Friday or Saturday or something like that. Hopefully a kind of wee A to Z. It's just like our open chat with sci-fi. But we're going to theme it with letters and present to you a whole bunch of sci-fi stuff that we can do in a really easy and manageable way. Haha, excellent. So I'll say good night, folks. Thank you very much, as always, for all of your help. Take care of yourselves, no matter where you're at. I'll see you real soon. And once again, thank you. Take it easy now. All the best. Bye-bye. Oh, there we go.